Noting the hour, I'll call the meeting of the Fire Station Committee to order. And since we're not all here, I'd like to have a roll call vote, a roll call admission. So Larry, present?
Present.
Sarah?
Present.
Alan? Present. Priya?
Present.
Maria?
Present.
Mac Reed, here. Is there any input from the public? Anybody wishing to speak? As everyone knows, can speak up to 3 minutes.
So, do you have the timer? Mark Barbadero has his hand up.
Oh, yes, can you do that, Mike?
I'll wait for Mike. Oh, in the process. Okay, Mark, you should be unmuted.
Oh, okay, Mark.
Hey, Mac. So I wanted to talk about 3 items that are on the agenda. I'm going to speak very fast, so pay attention so you can get the gist of it. The first one is 1300 Mass Ave. There's been a study done on that site. They did four different designs of combined public safety facilities at that location, soil tests and analysis. I've got a copy of the report. It was the HKT study. It was for the joint public safety facility. I see that you guys are considering doing more testing there, possibly paying for design work, test fits, and pricing. All that's been done. There is a question that was left on the last report from HKT. They reached out to DEP, and we're trying to find out, since their wells are pre-existing non-conforming, whether or not they could modify the building and use the wells. So whoever you reach out to, or whoever you have do this work, make sure that they reach out to DEP and find out whether that will work. There's 2 Zone 1 public water supply well radii in the parking lot. They're so large that they cover the entire parking lot. I heard talk about the idea of building a building in the parking lot, a fire station, and repurposing the building for something else. That's not going to work. DEP just won't allow you to do that. But don't take my word for it. Please reach out to them. As far as 700 Mass Ave goes, there is a traffic study that has been done for the enclave. It has a traffic report, sightlines, recommended requirements, and mitigation for the work road that they created. That's still there right now. If you're going to have somebody do another traffic study on that site, it might be more cost effective just to have them read what's there and explain what the terms are from that traffic study. And then lastly, there's a letter from the building inspector talking about variances. There was some good information in that letter about what the criteria for a variance is, but I was a little disturbed about the idea that the building inspector, who has no jurisdiction over variances, is opining on a person's property who has not come before the board to request a variance. We're a quasi-judicial board on the Zoning Appeals Board. We take our job seriously. We hold hearings and we allow evidence to be presented before we make findings of the kind that are made in that letter. So I would just encourage you guys not to take the opinion of someone who has no jurisdiction, but definitely consider the recommendation of what the requirements are. And if you have any further questions about that, as was written in our Special Land Use Council's letter, we review the building inspector's opinions. He does not review ours. We overturn him. He does not overturn us. So please consider that when you read this letter. Okay. Thanks for listening, Mac. Have a good night.
All right, thank you. So, any other interested parties?
I don't see any other hands. Last call for hands up for the Zoom meeting. Nope, no one in the room. Nope, no more public. What?
Okay, we will move on to Mark's third point here about we have a letter from the building commissioner, and we'll just, in summary, there was a request for a zoning determination on whether a variance would be granted for a building of greater than 15,000 square feet in the town center district, and that would relate to 750 Mass Avenue. And the conclusion is, in my professional determination of the ordinance, this request would not be a qualifying event as stated above, and a variance would not be allowed. So Mark had obviously a different opinion here, but I think the important thing is that if 700 becomes a site that we are very interested in, that's obviously something that needs to be pursued. So, any other comments about that? Okay. There was a public hearing by the planning board on August 4th and on August 11th. And I know a couple of you were.
Give the update?
Yes, could you give the update?
So I'm just going to sort of do August 4th and 11th together, because it was essentially, they started it on the 4th and they went into the 11th, and it continues into the 18th. So they've been discussing municipal use. There are two paths that they can take. There's two kind of on the table that they've been discussing. There's members on the planning board that feel that public safety buildings specifically, not municipal buildings, public safety buildings should be done by right anywhere in town. There's another member who's brought forward an overlay with the addresses that were given to her of the properties that we've looked at or maybe looking at. That overlay excludes 72 Stowe Road. So that was on the 4th that came forward. On the 11th, there was more discussion about it. There's actually some language around the first path of by right anywhere in town. There was some public input. Both nights, I think the public input was easily 60-40 in favor of by right in anywhere in town. There was a couple of people who commented that they felt, or at least one person commented that they felt that if there was going to be an overlay, it was going to go that direction, then 72 Road should be included in that overlay. There were people who expressed concern that the overlay was far too restrictive, which I don't disagree, because the overlay would literally be the properties we're looking at, excluding 72 at the moment. But we don't know if something else is going to pop up. And it's not, all the properties. There are some other properties that people have mentioned. So they are meeting again on the 18th. The language for the warrant for the October meeting needs to be, the select board has given them until November 4th to get that language.
November.
Oh, did I say November? I'm sorry. September 4th. Yeah, not November. September 4th to get that language. And then the select board will vote on it that Monday night, the 8th, I believe, and then FinCom will be the 9th. I know Mary's not here, but I'm not really sure how then we vote on it, because we won't have, or if we're going to vote on it, I assume we would make a recommendation, but we're not going to have final language, at least have, and even know which path they're going to go on until after the 18th, and they're not going to have final language till the 4th, right?
Correct.
They meet on, they actually schedule another meeting for September 3rd, Thursday night. So I'm not really sure how we're going to do that. We might need to do, I don't know if Mary wants to do like a quick Zoom meeting once we get the final language to talk about it, but that's up to the chair to figure out.
I think, though, the wording in this letter doesn't narrow it that much, just saying that we believe by right for
so that's
safety
well,
is
that's fine, but that's, I think, when I read that as a letter to the planning board.
Yes.
This is a recommendation for the warrant article.
Oh.
So I think, I just don't, I don't know, like FinCom's not voting until, we never vote on any warrant article until we get final language, because you can't vote on something that you don't know what it's going to say. So I would defer to Mary to, when she gets back from vacation, to figure out if we should try to squeeze another meeting in or what.
I would tend to agree that that's probably the only way to do it, is to have a Zoom meeting once you know what the planning board final language is, so that you can, just to vote a recommendation. And, you could maybe even start crafting what a recommendation might look like in a couple of different forms, as you start looking at what the planning board outcome might be. But again, that's guesswork.
And I think, and I'm not sure, because I'm not on the planning board, but I think on the 18th, they're going to narrow down the focus right? Because they're then gonna work on language, come back, I think they don't have a meeting, that the 18th is the public hearing, and then they have a meeting on September 3rd. So I think they gotta narrow down with which path they're gonna take. But again, that's the planning board's decision, so we should at least have an idea, maybe, on the 18th, by the end of that meeting, what direction they're gonna go in. So like I said, I defer to Mary, maybe you guys can meet and chat. So I think that's everything, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
No, and Mike and Mac, I don't know if this is a good time for people to know, like, when the next meeting is and
Yes.
what time the
So
hearing
It's
is.
the
So
18th?
It's the 18th. There is 3 hearings in front of it. There's a 7:05 hearing, there's a 7:25 hearing, and then there's like an 8 o'clock.
8:05, I
Eight o-
think.
I think we're at 8:05. I think we're the
8:05,
third hearing that night. The reality is, there's 2 public hearings in front of it. So is it 8:05? I don't know. But at 9:05, they've scheduled MBTA, which is also needs to be done for the 4th. So hopefully they stay on schedule. I did ask at the last meeting, I just mentioned that it's very difficult for people because a lot of people had to fall off the meeting, that first meeting, because it wasn't even, I don't even know if it was a public hearing. Their first item went for an hour and people couldn't stay on. So I think people need to be prepared to get on not before 8 o'clock if they're only getting on for that one thing. And hopefully it'll be close to 8 o'clock.
Mike, is there a way, like Alec or someone can figure out if we post a hearing for a certain time, then does that have to be open? I don't know. I'm just asking, being a lame person, so, in terms of the planning board piece.
I was under the impression that when you post a public hearing like that, that you're supposed to at least open it up at that time.
At that time,
Even
okay.
if you defer it to later in the meeting.
Yeah.
But I will try to verify that.
And if you have public hearings in front of it, when we were on the select board, if we had a public hearing at 7:30, we would do other business, but at 7:30, even if we were in the middle of the other business, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a public hearing,
That's
we
what-
would stop our other business. But if there's 2 public hearings in front of it, you can't just stop the public hearing for the contractor on whatever, Codman Hill, whatever it is, to jump into this meeting. So
Well,
it's
I mean,
just,
that's not our purview.
No, but
Let
I
them
don't think you
decide
can.
that.
I think you have to,
So-
you're in the middle of a public hearing, you need to either continue that one and then move on to the
I
second
think
one.
our planning board members are pretty savvy in making this work, so as long as it says 8:05, and if that's what needs to happen, we just want to make sure that that's the case.
I do think people need to understand it won't be before 8:05, and hopefully it'll be close to 8:05.
Was there a sense at those hearings that the by right concept was more acceptable because it's just for public safety and not just in general?
So I think from public comments on the 4th,
Yeah.
I think there was, I was jotting down numbers. It was about a 60-40 split in favor of by right. And on the 11th, I don't know how many people in total because I was a little distracted that night, but there was only 2 negative comments to by right. Anywhere in town, and the rest of the comments, and it was more than 2, was that it should be, as much flexibility to the fire station building committee as possible. Some people said, they're doing everything they can do, but they need flexibility in this. So I think on the board itself, I think it's probably a split board. It's not I don't think there'll be a consensus.
But that's a very different concept if it's just for public safety and not
Right.
Yeah.
in general.
Right, and I think what we heard before, we didn't hear about we heard people on 72 Stowe Road, but that was because they were the butters, the noise, the fire station. The majority of the people who were concerned about this were concerned about, wastewater treatment, because that's what was in the flyers. And so I think there's a different feeling towards public safety. The people who were on the meeting, I would say, both nights was about 60-40 in favor of public safety by right.
Plus, they even defined what public safety meant.
Right.
It was
and
very
right,
specific.
Right. Very specific, to the point where, and we couldn't answer this question, Mike, they wanted to understand, and hopefully Alec is getting this information from you, what specifically the Reserve Corps, because they want the emergency reserve, right? Because they want to say fire, police, and a dispatch and emergency reserve corps. So Alex is supposed to get to you on a definition for that.
So he did. He reached out to the chiefs and myself, and I know the chiefs are working on getting input back to him
Okay.
for Monday's meeting.
Right. So, and I think, like, I know kind of big picture what they are. They passed out masks during COVID, which was great. I know they do more than that. So I don't think any of us, Kristen was on the meeting, I don't think any of us felt comfortable answering that question. We didn't want to belittle what they did.
From my lay understanding, it would be, I think they would fall under the emergency management
Yeah.
bucket.
Yes.
Because that's where they provide their assistance.
Right,
to
but the
fire
question
chief.
is what specifically, and so how does that affect the zoning? So, anyway, we just need to get that definition to the planning board so there's an understanding. That was my feeling.
During that meeting, when that came up,
Yeah.
I forwarded the Burke flyer to
Okay.
Alec,
Okay.
asking him to distribute
Wait,
it.
you could have spoken to that.
Well, I'm not really a member.
I know
My
you're not,
wife
but at
is.
least you have a better idea, like.
Well,
I
that's
mean-
why I sent the flyer
Okay.
to Alex, so he could give it to the planning board members
Okay.
if he wanted, because they really had no idea. They didn't even know what the acronym meant.
Right.
It's
When
gonna be,
we-
it's tough to define because they do a lot.
They do a
They-
lot,
they do.
right.
There's so, I refer to them as my force multiplier because we're strapped for personnel that they really fill a void for us when, and especially if we're gonna have a major event, they come in and fill a major void for us. So it's really difficult to say how much they are actually willing to and prepared to do. So it's taken a little bit, but I'm gonna have it, I'll narrow it down and I'll refine it a little bit, but it's.
I think it was just kind of a general definition, and I think like my problem was I kind of knew what they did, but I didn't want to belittle what they did because I knew it was a lot.
Right,
So I felt like saying they passed mask out at COVID was
In
going to be.
essence, they're a CERT team, CERT, right, from NEMA, except they've taken on the acronym of Burke for Boxborough. So they meet all of the CERT team needs, but then they're also doing so much through the boards of health that they've taken on, almost like the firefighters have, they've taken on dual role of doing things for emergencies and then doing things also in medical. So it's, we'll have something that clearly shows how important they are to Boxborough, and we'll make sure that
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
to the planning board.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult, like you said, because until a disaster or emergency arises, you're not going to know. Like, I mean, none of us knew about COVID, right?
Right.
Like, nobody, the whole world didn't know, but until it happens. So there could be something new that could happen.
Well, they'll definitely.
Hopefully
could be,
not,
right?
but.
Next on our agenda, kind of related to this, is a draft of a letter. I'm going to read this letter partly for people at home, and we're going to ask our committee to discuss it, and if it's okay, to ask you to vote on it so that we can send it to the planning board. The members of the Fire Station Building Committee would like to thank the members of the planning board for all your work on zoning related to public safety buildings, including our tri-board meeting held on June 17, 2025, and the public hearings you have held and will hold in August 2025 in preparation for a zoning article at the October special town meeting. From the hearing and your other meetings, we understand that you are exploring different options to address the zoning issue in town. Based on the discussion we heard, the input from community members, and the need to allow for flexibility in selecting an appropriate and cost-effective site for the new fire station, the Fire Station Building Committee recommends that the planning board put forward a zoning amendment that allows for facilities for public safety purposes, including structures used for police, fire, emergency medical services, and emergency management, be permitted by right in all zoning districts within the town of Boxborough. Thank you for your consideration of this recommendation. Any comments?
I think it's
Well written.
yeah. Well written, and
Okay,
I agree with it.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this letter.
I'll move that we approve the letter as read by Matt, the August 14th letter from the committee to the planning board.
Second.
Oh, cool. Sorry.
All right, I heard Maria and Alan.
Ellen,
Se-
second, yeah.
Alan, second. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Priya?
Sundaram, aye.
Maria?
Neil and I.
And Mac Reed, aye. Okay, we will get this in, and I guess we need to get our signatures on here somehow. I should have probably had a formal one ready so that we could have signed it right here, but somehow we'll have to take care of that. Okay.
Probably, you can send signed doc, whatever
Did
it
she
is.
sign it as chair?
No.
No, she put
Okay,
all our names.
just a
in.
draft, okay.
We probably, can't we just,
We can do a digital signature.
can't we?
Yeah,
send
we
it
can
out, yeah.
send it, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
well, it's Thursday. If we don't have time to do that, I mean, you know, we're all agreeing to it. Can we just send it without our actual signatures?
Well, how about if that gets retyped, and I'll just sign it
Yeah.
since I'm here, as the vice chair.
Doesn't need all our signatures.
Is that-
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
okay.
we could probably do digital signature, that can be done like.
Well, I know, but it's Thursday night and their meeting's on Monday.
Monday, oh, okay.
So they're gonna want it in the morning for the Dropbox stuff, I would imagine. And I do think, is
How
Mary, I'm sorry.
No, how about if we just make a copy and all of us sign that? Is that feasible, and we can scan it and send it to
We
them?
could, except it says draft on
Yeah,
it.
it says draft on it.
Right.
Where's the original? Is it somewhere on a server that
We'll
Mike
have
can
to,
get to?
no, because we'll have to just remove the ink,
Yeah, I think-
drafting.
And this is a PDF and everything else. so-
Can I just sign it on behalf of the
Yeah.
board that we
Yeah,
voted?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. I
Yeah.
think that's fine.
So if you can have Kelly get a new copy, I'll stop over and sign it for. and-
So, the other thing is, so the planning board has gotten a recommendation from the Water Resources Committee. I know that there's been a couple of correspondence. There was another correspondent from a resident in favor of, I think by right. They don't read those into the record, so I personally think that Mary should read this into the record at the meeting, if she's gonna be here, if she's back for that. Or you or I, somebody should read it. Because they just go in correspondence, and if people don't go looking for these things, they don't get seen. And you know, that is one thing that I agree with. A couple of other people last week said the same thing. You know, this is public input, and the water resource one being buried in a you know, a Dropbox file, that should have been read out. So it would be great if that got read at our meeting, at their meeting.
Good idea. Next on our agenda is just a little description of our listening group. Our group of 11 has met twice. The second time, actually 2 members were not present, but there's been a lot of good discussion. It's obviously mostly focused on cost and size. Well, they're certainly related. At the first meeting, there was a lot of discussion about comparisons with other towns that are building firehouses. And so there were 6 communities that we were asked to do some comparison. You've seen that. Mary did a nice job, and Chief called all the chiefs in those 6 places, and Rajan called all the town administrators. And so there was a lot of discussion. Mary put it into a nice format. And interesting to me, on the second meeting that we had, there was very little discussion of that. And my theory about that is it was pretty clear in my mind that there was a lot of apples and oranges. No 2 communities are exactly the same. We've talked about, do some towns have town water, that they don't need the big tanker trucks that we have? Do they have a flat site that they could build on? Do they have town-owned land that they could build on? There's so many variables, and none of those 6 really totally matched our circumstance. Mary felt that Lakeview which wasn't one of the 6, was most similar to us. They have a highway that goes through it. That's another issue, that some towns have a highway and our staff does a lot of work on 495, and some communities don't have to do that. So anyway, that went by the boards a little bit, I think, although there's still some comparisons. There was a lot of discussion about needing a target number, that we should come up with a target number that we think the community can afford, and that we should tell our architects that they need to design toward that number. So there's a lot of discussion about that. I expressed my concern on a number of occasions about picking a number out of a hat, but there are some ways that I guess that we can look at that to some degree. We can look at the size, we can look at the locations, and there are variables certainly in those places, and that we can make decisions based on that, and that's coming up in another couple minutes here.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So there was a need for a target number.
Yes.
But the one thing, because we heard that at that meeting after town meeting too, there was a lot of people in the room and they said the same thing. Did they say what the target number was? Because that was what we asked that night, and we didn't really get a sense. You know, I'm just curious. I don't think someone says $15 million. Well, that's not realistic.
Right.
So I'm just curious if we got a number out of that, or it was just that we should have a target number. Feels a little bit like working backwards, but
There's an intermediary there. There's a target number that's less than what we have now.
Okay.
33 million, this group is convinced is not going to be saleable. And that
Okay.
we need to find a number smaller by looking at the program and the site to see what we can reduce in some ways, and then pick a target number out of that. I don't know, Larry, if you have any comment about that, the target, finding a target number?
Well, I don't think a target number is the right way to design a public safety building, a fire station building, because who comes up with the number, and is it the right number? I think the analysis and the drill down on the bare necessities, what are the essential components that we need for the fire station? We may put aside expansion space, as we talked about last night. We may put aside a large public meeting space, knowing that we're going to lose the amenities of that large meeting space. We may reduce some of the storage areas, but I think that through the conversations with the chief, maybe some of his staff, and our architect, we'll come to a number that makes sense. I think a target is like throwing a dart. I don't think it makes sense.
okay. So, and I guess the other question I have is, Larry, and so this is more maybe a question for you. When we did the school, we designed the school and said, okay, we need to do value engineering. And we were able to cut a significant amount, I think, out of it. But it was already designed. So then you look at the design and say, okay, this is where we're going to cut. And we did things like the classrooms. When you walk into the classroom, there's an area for cubbies and sinks, and then there's the classroom. And we made those a little smaller. And, instead of each classroom having a breakout room, we made a breakout room that worked for, I think, the 2 classrooms. This goes back a ways, in between, right? This goes back, I think it was pre-COVID that we did this, so I'm trying to work my memory. But we did that after it was designed.
Right.
So this kind of, and that worked. I mean, because we looked at it and said, okay, where can we cut? So you design to the programming and then say, do we really, can we really live with a training room that's smaller than this? Probably. So then that's where you cut. You don't generally, I don't know, that's how we did it with the school, and it worked really well.
This is a different process. We're not using the same process to approve it. We were able to do that, and before people voted on the 117 million or 120 million in dollars. So this is a different process. So can we do it at this point? It's not really feasible to be doing it.
It just seems like we're doing it backwards, right?
But that's the process that we've set out. That's the only time we can do it to lower that number now, and you're right.
Well, no, I mean, the process, if we get a vote to proceed with a site and a budget for professional services, there will be stages along the way after schematic design, after design development, that we'll have pricing done, and then the next phase we'll try to incorporate reductions, value engineering, and then we'll have decisions about systems and materials and landscape and parking lighting and stone walls and all those other things. But the program really comes first. And we want to reduce the program before we start designing, if that makes sense. But we haven't really drilled down and had the opportunity to do that yet.
Right. But as you said, Larry, we're going to be asking for somewhere between 2.4, maybe in $2.6 million. But people are going to ask, what is that going to lead to? We're going to have some kind of a number to tell them, if we do this, here's the maximum, and
Yeah, and we will, just like we did before, we had a conceptual budget, but the conceptual budget was based on the current space needs that we have. We need to revisit the space needs, see if there's any reductions that make sense that we're going to recommend to the town, and then we'll have a new conceptual budget done that will then be presented to the town when we ask to proceed, along with obviously the site that we're going to be proposing.
right. So that is, we're doing some pushback now on that with context. Another thing that came up with this group of 11 people, somebody mentioned about our committee's due diligence, and I said to them, what does that mean to this group? And they came up with several things, and I have them here. One is that we need to establish a list of facts on each of the potential sites. If we get down to 2 or 3 sites, or even 1, we need to have facts that everybody will agree to, so that when we get up at town meeting, people can't stand up and say, well, no, you didn't look at this, or you didn't look at that. Maybe people will do that, but we need to be very clear about what the facts that we're designing.
So when you say that our facts, like, we need to be clear.
Yes.
So even if people, because there are going to be
Well-
people who get up and don't agree with our facts.
Right.
We're not looking for a consensus from everybody. We're just saying,
No.
because we're not going to get that.
We need to be
Okay.
able to feel like we have looked at everything very carefully, and that we can back up the facts that we believe. So that,
So Mac, was
Yes.
there any examples that we didn't the last time? So that we learn from our mistakes, right? Like, so were there any specific examples that they gave that where we didn't have the facts?
I can't tell you what they are, but people would say, well, I heard somebody on your committee say this about the 502 is going to be underwater in 30 years or whatever. And is that a fact or not? And that's
I mean, there are some things that you have to deduce, right? Nothing
Right.
is going to be, I mean, people say that, like, we are all, I mean, anything can happen in terms of geography and in terms of climate, and, right? So you can be 100% sure from those areas. I'm not picking on that, but I'm just saying
and I'm
there's gonna
probably
be.
the one who said that, because I think that there's going to be a flooding problem with 502, but it's not a fact, but it
Right.
is, okay, so it's my
Intelligent deduction,
opinion,
I
and
guess.
it's, right, based on the facts that we do have, what we know about the wetland delineation, where it was, where it is, that we know that the fire station currently gets water issues when it rains, so it's that kind of thing. But I understand what you're saying, so don't say it if it's not actually factual.
Well,
Or-
at this
Wouldn't it
point, when
be
we get
that-
down to 1 or 2 sites, we really need to try to be as factual as
If we ended up
possible.
choosing 502 as the site we're going to recommend now,
Mm-hmm.
then all those kind of facts that people have heard, or they think they're facts, are they really?
Mm-hmm.
And your example, is it really going to flood there? And when would it flood there? Or is it going to flood farther down where the library is? Because that's the low area for the wetland. It would flood there first and never get up to the fire station. But is that true? And we need to be ready to explain that if it's true.
Right.
Matt, can I ask a
Yes,
question?
Sure.
When this came up, was this in relation to discussions at this table?
Yes.
Or at town meeting,
No, here.
here?
Listening to
Would
our
it-
meetings that
Okay.
that
Would it,
we have a lot of opinions, and I think that's fine, but at some point.
would it help if things were prefaced with, it is my opinion that X, Y, Z versus, the data supports this as factual, to at least because like, I know later on we're gonna get to a table that has some opinions for me in there, and I'm gonna preface it with, this is my opinion.
Right.
Does that help? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it will, but when we get down to the final decision, we need to, I
So
agree
once we
with them.
pick a site.
Yes,
So, because it's hard, I'm sorry,
Well-
I don't think we should be muted. We all have our opinions. We've all also looked at a lot of the documentation. And so some of the stuff is, this is what I'm deducing from this, and do we need to cite the actual report? I think that's difficult.
I
We
think
need to
it's-
have a free-flowing conversation.
sure, and it's fine to have opinions, we all should have opinions, but at some point, we need to back those up. No, Sarah?
Oh, Ellen,
No,
just
go
go ahead. Oh, okay. So when we put that matrix together to help us choose between the sites, we and I remember saying this in the meeting, like, we need to make sure that it's based on fact. And there was some stuff in there that was not necessarily based on fact, but was drawn as a conclusion, like the impacts of the abutters.
Yeah, common
Yep.
sense and logic.
Right. So I guess that my question is, how are we supposed to do this? Because that was in the matrix, and that was how I was of the understanding that we pulled all of the facts together so that we could come to that conclusion. So I guess, like, how are they seeing that we have to present more facts?
I think
Was
we can come to a conclusion that the abutters issue is significant, and that's
Again.
hard to make that a fact
Fact.
anyway, but we
Right.
can come to that conclusion.
Right.
But for something like, is the 502 going to flood in 30 years? I think we need to rely on not ourselves making that decision, but context and their subcontractors.
okay. So that was the one item that was
That
specifically
was
pulled out from it.
the one I remember most specifically.
Okay. I was just like, because we have done a lot of studies, a lot of reading,
Right.
and we pulled all these facts together, and that was because we talked about this at the beginning of, back in August last year, right? This was how we were going to select the site. We were going to have these studies completed, pulling all of the facts together so that we could logically make a decision. And so I'm like, I just want to know how other facts we should be including.
I
I
don't
know
think
that's
you
not a
can,
good
like, you
sentence,
can
but-
have everything factual, because there's there's emotions involved, right?
Right.
And there's people involved.
Right.
So we need to include those things
Yes,
as well.
no question about that.
So I think
Yeah.
it's disingenuous for people to expect everything to be facts, but we will, I'll definitely make sure that, like, if I say something, I'll say it as it's my opinion, or it's based on what I'm reading, this is what I can deduce, I can
Right.
say that. But I think it's important, like, I just don't want, again, for us to be held to that standard where everything has to be factual. I mean,
That's
even
up to
what, like,
states.
CDC put in place was not everything was factual. Like, so even those big organizations, they can't come up with 100% factual stuff. So it's hard, so it's just, I just want to make sure that.
So I just think that when we come down to something like the water or wetlands, that we need to make sure that we've asked the right questions. And whatever we get back, we're going to have to rely on that, and that's going to be our opinion. and
Yeah.
our
So basically,
facts.
that is the one thing that that was focused on, was that statement, is what I'm hearing, because we keep going back to that. It was the wetlands. I'm the one who said it.
Well,
That's
that,
In the
Maria,
no, but in the context of everything that we heard, everything that we looked at on that property, where we've been, where we're going, 13 years of reports, and so I think we have to do our best to say in our opinion, but honestly, we're also not just, we're also people, and we're smart, intelligent, thoughtful people who've been doing this. We've read a lot of this. We understand what we're reading. So you're gonna have opinion whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So I just,
Okay.
I don't think we should,
I think you're, yeah, I
think,
think that you're
yeah,
right
I
though,
think,
that
yeah.
we can get that.
yeah, we don't need to beat that anymore, but,
Yep.
but,
Excuse me, Mac.
yes.
I was just
Alan.
going to say, it seems to me too that way at the beginning when we started this committee, Mary said she will speak for the committee. We can all have an opinion, but she will say it's the opinion of the committee that, rather than the public having 5 different opinions and not knowing
Right.
anything. Mary will speak for the committee and say it's the opinion of the committee that, or the committee investigated something and found this as a fact, rather than, the 5 of us maybe not agreeing on everything, which doesn't matter. It only matters what the committee decided in the
Right.
end.
Yeah, good point. There was discussion on the first of our 2 meetings about maybe building so that they could add on to something at a later date. And by the second meeting, I think that group said that probably is not going to happen. So even though that was a discussion for a while, that's probably not going to happen. I think we probably agree with that.
Excuse me, Mac.
Yes?
For the benefit of everybody that wasn't involved here and there, why was that not going to happen? What was the reason that the people participating decided that wouldn't work as a solution?
People around the table started saying, I don't think that's going to happen. So there were several people who were broaching that subject, and other people in the group kind of said, you know, that's probably not going to happen. And I think the group kind of acquiesced to that and realized, sort of took it off the table, as from my vantage point. So it wasn't, certainly wasn't me. It was the group itself.
Would it be feasible to get more details about, like, what is it, is that not something, I mean, we talk about transparency, so in terms of like what exactly transpired in these meetings, is it feasible?
Yeah, I think we sent you the minutes from the first meeting, right, that Mary?
Notes,
took?
she sent, I think they were called notes or whatever,
Yeah,
meeting
yeah.
notes.
Well, they were
Over
just
there.
Yeah,
a summary
yeah,
of
yeah, a
of
summary of the
things.
meetings,
Yeah, and actually, she hasn't typed up from the second session.
Okay.
One of the one of the suggestions that came up was maybe we should have a video of a fairly new firehouse that we like the looks of, to have it alongside our own that doesn't look so good. And so people can see this is what we could have if we, at the end of the
That
process
makes-
here.
So I think that makes me nervous. Hold on.
Well, especially since we already said the chief and everybody involved couldn't find a comparable.
Well, and right, because whatever video we pull, then people are gonna say,
Yeah.
but wait a minute, they pulled Carlisle, and then there's gonna be people on one side or the other. I'm not saying, you know, it's a certain, they're gonna say, well, we're not Carlisle because blah, blah, we don't have a highway, they don't have this, they don't have that.
That's true.
And then if
That's
we
true.
pull, you know, I don't know, Littleton, well, we're not Littleton because we don't have Market Basket on that whole, I just would think we need to be careful about that.
It's more to show what a good firehouse looks like. I think that's a point.
What if instead
So
of
that's,
showing,
that's your, that's.
Yeah,
your-
that's our thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we really need to discuss this.
We do. I think we can discuss it in like our PR meeting. I
Yeah.
think there's a way to do it though.
Maybe AI can help us without any other, I'm serious.
it can pull. Cause I think
Yeah,
we can pull.
without any,
I don't even
like,
think it
any
has to
of
be
the-
necessarily.
It doesn't,
in
right, it can be
Massachusetts, but it
pictures of
pull,
different
Yeah.
pull, like
stations.
this is best practice. Like I remember Mary saying in one of our meetings when you guys visited that other firehouse, oh, they had all these training features that were just attached to the building.
Yeah.
And like this
Was
could
it
be.
Milford?
Yeah,
It was a
Norfolk.
Norfolk.
Yeah,
Norfolk.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like these could be features of the building. This is best. This could be considered
Yes, yeah.
like best
Okay.
practice in our opinion.
AI.
Our opinion.
I think when we heard about that, Jeff said, of course you're gonna have that, that's part of a standard design now. We're gonna put training features in the building when it makes sense to do so, based on what the chief thinks his guys need to know about your town.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
of course you'd have that.
Yeah, but we don't have to pick one fire station.
Right.
It
Okay.
could be like
Right.
many.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can
a
talk about it.
montage of.
Yes,
the-
pictures.
of
Then
the
that's
issues.
okay. That's
Yeah.
different.
That's a good
Okay,
idea.
That's
Yeah.
better. That doesn't
Okay.
lock us down.
Getting there.
And the last thing I had here from that group was a suggestion that we have a subgroup of that group that would be more specific to talk about the actual program, the building and the size of the rooms and things. And so the suggestion was that group would include Mark Barbadero, John Markowitz, and Mike Marshall. All three of them are 3 of the 11 on that group. And they asked for Larry and Sarah, because they both, the architects and the experience that Sarah has. And I went as the referee, which was somewhat needed, especially at the beginning of the meeting. And so we met last night for a couple of hours at the library, and it was difficult to get down to too many specifics. I think people had to get things out. Mark has come up with a spreadsheet, and I think I've sent it to everybody, that you can fiddle with the size of a room. Instead of it being 10 by 12, you can make it 10 by 10, and it will change at the bottom line of the thing. So if people want to use that,
So
they
I
can do.
I don't think any of us got that, Matt.
No?
No.
All right.
Did you see it?
Did you get it? Well, you may have gotten it because you were on that group, but I
Well,
don't, Alan and I
so
didn't see
Mac-
it.
No.
BCC'd all, like the FSBC to it. There's 9 different attachments in the email that he sent.
Right, I thought I sent it to everyone, because it had three.
You did.
At three
Oh my gosh, there's
apparatus bays that Mark had
Oh,
come
I
up
did
with.
see that one. Okay, I didn't realize there was.
But there was a
okay.
spreadsheet in
Yep,
there.
okay.
of
Yeah,
that.
there's like
So the point was to try to be specific so that we could give that information to context, and they would do with it what they thought was appropriate out of that group. We obviously told that group they weren't designing the firehouse. We weren't going to take their numbers exactly, but they had good ideas, and Mark did go through it, and he got the firehouse down to, I don't know, to 16,000 square feet or something like that. So anyway, that's available for people, and
So I guess so let's talk about that though, because I don't want to gloss over that. So he did that, we have the information. What is the next step? Because you didn't go through all of these meetings, and then last night's meeting, what's the next step to be sure that we're addressing, and I'll just bring it to the programming, I'm not going to go through, everything else, but let's just look at the programming. So Mark's done this, he's gotten this building by his design down to whatever, 17,000 square feet. You gonna now take that information and give it to the architects, or are we gonna discuss that? Because everything we give to the architects, we pay for, so we haven't even discussed this stuff. So I think, for me, I'd like to see this list, I'd like to understand it better, and I think we need to have that discussion in this group
I
first.
want to hear from the chief.
And I wanna hear, well, including with the chief, because I didn't hear you list him off on the people who were there last night, so.
he did want to be there
Okay.
to be able to push back, and again, just like.
No, Matt, not to push back, to participate.
Okay.
I just want to participate.
No, I
Don't
should-
just
I-
say I'm going to push back, I think is unfair.
That was unfair, yes. I meant to be able to respond to when they had said, well, you only need this, and you could have some explanation of what the importance of.
So I
those
guess,
things are.
and I think we need to have that from the chief, right? We've already had 2 chiefs look at this programming, and we're realistically gonna need to look at the design and the programming, but we've got this list. I think we then, as a committee, need to look at this before, and I'd like to at least know what it is. I'd like to understand what this list is, because that's why we're sitting here. I mean, we put a lot of time and energy into this. So, I think we need to discuss it and then bring it to the next step, to bring it back to context.
So that's is all based on this document that they had. As you know, it has
Yeah.
every single room, and it tells the dimensions of every room.
Yeah.
And so Mark put that on a spreadsheet.
I think.
So I don't know that we need to discuss his. I think we just give that, if we want to do it and discuss it,
No.
I think that's
No,
appropriate.
I mean, I think we just need to know like what it is, but like one of the things also like Mac, I mean, everything like looks like everything that we say like is very scrutinized, right? So we have to be also very careful about saying, okay, great ideas, we don't know, we got good feedback, that's what I would say. Like we got feedback, we want to like now look at the feedback and like be analytical about that, right? Like, and really put all our emotions aside and look at it like really quantitatively and qualitatively, and then decide what those feedback can be, how much of those can be taken into consideration, and how much is like really not feasible, right?
Or
like,
maybe we take it all into consideration. I'm not
Consideration,
saying
yeah.
we're not going to. I'm just saying if a list is gonna go to the architects, and we're gonna
Just
pay
go
these
with it.
architects for their opinions, we should at least, as a committee, understand what that list is. And we then should, at some point, have those conversations with the list and the bigger context of what does this programming look like? I do think, there's the programming, and we're gonna need to make concessions on that.
absolutely.
I hate the word compromise, because I don't want to compromise the building, but we need to make some concessions. But I think we need to do that as this group, and take the feedback into consideration as well. I just don't want to see a list go to the, I'm sorry, with all due respect, we're the ones on this committee, a list to just go to the architect and not us be at least copied on that list. We should at least
You were
understand
copied
that.
on the list, you did get it.
No, I just think we should have a little bit of a discussion, Mac, and then let it go to the architect if you
Sarah has something she wants to say.
Well,
She's like jonesing to say it.
Could we get the opinion of Sarah and Larry, please, since they're the experts that were on this and having the discussion about whether or not we can cut another 20% out of this building?
Well, I have two things to say before I give you that. One is we did have a fire station building committee meeting where we went through the programming together and discussed it. So
Right.
I think yes, it's only appropriate to then go through what else we're looking at, right? That was the first thing. That's my opinion. The second one is that report. I wanted to ask Jeff.
I don't know if he's
on, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he is
Jeff.
on. Yep, hold on, let me unmute him. Okay,
And Steve is also on.
okay, Jeff's unmuted.
Jeff, I wanted
Oh,
to
also
ask
unmute
you,
Steve.
the report that was given, the conceptual drawings that we have, are the square footage in the conceptual drawings exactly what is in that report? Or are they different?
So the program that was done at the beginning was the idealized version of the building, and then as the very preliminary conceptual designs were created, that was improved upon in terms of efficiency. So we tried to keep the room sizes approximately the same, but as you know, as laying out a building, they don't always, work out to the exact geometry. But if you remember, the program assumed a grossing factor for circulation in walls and lots of other things of a little over 30%. And I believe the final designs within the early conceptual studies brought that down quite a bit. So it's a much more efficient building. And the total square footage is less than the original program. In fact, I shouldn't say original because it was modified a few times, especially after the chief went through it again to bring it down a bit more. So it still has all the same spaces, and those spaces are roughly the same sizes as the program, but the overall efficiency of the building is better.
Okay, all right. That's what my question was, because I wanted to make sure if we're reducing numbers that we're reducing it from what we saw on the concept drawings. Because that's the number that we have all been working from, not from that HKT report.
Oh, this is HKT?
Or I'm sorry.
It's the context report.
That's
Okay.
my fault. Yeah,
Okay.
the
That they
context
reviewed.
report,
Okay.
yes.
So Jeff, could you respond to this? This is another issue that I have heard several times, that the HKT report was for a combined fire and police station, and that some people at least believe that the same size of the rooms exist in terms of the foyer and the entrance and bathrooms, and some of those things that were designed for two operations didn't get reduced for just the firehouse. So,
Are you asking me about the HKT study?
yes.
No,
What we
No, the question is, did you take the information from HKT and use that as the baseline for your space needs report?
Right.
Yeah, no, that absolutely did not happen. We certainly reviewed all of the past studies that the town had conducted to get a sense of where things were, but we did our own independent space needs analysis for the fire department and the police department. Originally, we were asked to do a public safety building, and then it morphed into a fire station, but we did our own independent work.
Can you elaborate on what that work was, please? So the public can hear that as well.
Sure, we interviewed the fire chief. It was a different chief at the time, and the police chief. We toured their current facilities, which are pretty much the same as what they have now. We understood the nature of the programs that they conducted in those interviews, understanding the various requirements for storage for the different programs that they are mandated to provide, as well as the training requirements for both departments. We have a long history in our firm of doing these types of projects, so we applied our own internal standards for what we would expect these spaces to be in terms of their function for future space requirements or the departments. But every department's slightly different, so that, if you can't expect to take a program for, an urban town or city in the Boston area and apply it to Boxborough and have the same outcome. So you have to take into account how they operate their departments, which are a little bit different. We take into account the staffing requirements and the vehicle requirements, both current day and future. There was a lot of discussion about how the town could potentially budget, or would they be able to budget for an expanding force, both police and fire, and was that realistic to project? So we tried to project as realistic an amount of staffing and vehicle acquisition as reasonable. We also looked at, future expansion possibilities and whether or not how much of that to include in the building. Realistically, there's not much because departments, by the nature of going, shifting to a staff that has some more full-time folks, would already automatically day one have some future flexibility built into it. So really that's the biggest consideration. And then we reviewed those, I think, 4 or 5 times with the committee, revising it downwards as we continue to similar to what you're doing, debate the merits of each individual space by space. And that became the public safety program. And then subsequently to that, we also went through a process of pulling out the fire department pieces from that program and speculating on the size of the fire station based upon the programming that was done. Of course, that takes things like the lobby and the gym and mechanical spaces, places that would have been shared by both departments, and sizes them appropriately for just a single department, which would be smaller in most cases, but not 50% of the size, because there's some efficiencies and requirements, particularly when you talk about a public safety lobby. There's so much activity that happens in the lobby and so many different entrance points that literally the number of doors, elevators, water fountains, things like that you have to accommodate tends to start to dictate the size of the space. All of that was taken into account, and a fire station program was created. And then subsequently to that, the new fire chief was brought on board, and he and our team went through the program in detail and modified it again, going through a very detailed process to understand the nature of each individual space, how this chief wanted to operate the building, and minor changes were made, but significantly we made sure that the program would align to the department's expectations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan, did you have another
No, that's
question?
fine.
Okay. So regarding this question about should we be reviewing what other people are thinking about, I think we certainly can think about do we need another office for a future officer? Yeah. We can talk about do they need a conference room? What the size of the training room? Equipment, future equipment. Yeah. Those things I think we can, but absolutely. As far as saying the entrance should be 12 by 10 instead of 14 by 10, I don't think that is a good use of our time, nor do I know. That's
No, I agree.
That's
I
Jeff's
think
business.
What are you trying to save? $100,000 or $1 million?
Right.
Because those things aren't going to save $1 million.
Right.
You need to cut square footage of the building and the structure, not how many sheets of sheetrock you need to make the room 2 feet smaller.
So,
I mean, that's absurd.
Sarah.
I was gonna say, to what you're saying, Alan, though, and Mac, those things will get refined as the design progresses to the size of the vestibule. Like, they just don't have that all drawn out yet.
Right.
Well, we still have we have to have the community support us. It's going to come down to our site that we agree,
Yes.
that we recommend again, and the overall cost that people see. And if we can't get people at the town meeting and then go to the ballot box to vote for it, that doesn't matter.
Right.
So we need to show that we're squeezing a little bit somehow.
I think.
I agree. I think that we just need to get to that. We haven't had that discussion in a lot of detail because we've
Mary,
been so
can I make a
focused on
suggestion?
sites.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I think you know, designing buildings by committee creates camels. I think that what I would recommend, I go back to the initial question, what are we trying to achieve here? And I think what we're trying to achieve is twofold. Both politically, we're trying to come back to the community and say we've looked at every aspect of this building and we've taken out everything that's non-discretionary. What do we not, what things do we not have to have? What can we do without? And we haven't gone through that exercise yet. And in order to do that exercise, we need the feedback of the architect, because there are a lot of things, a lot of components of this building are code driven. Right. I mean, they're essentially dimensional requirements for certain aspects. We can't say, well, let's make this smaller. It can't be any smaller. There are certain requirements on mechanical systems and data rooms. They are what they are. You can't choose to make them smaller. They just don't work. So I think with the chief, some of the chief staff, with the architect, we need to ask the hard question, what can we reduce, what can we remove, and still have a functioning fire station? And we haven't actually had that conversation yet. I think we should do that and then come back to the committee with revisions and discuss them, whether or not they're acceptable, because we're going to get rid of, we're going to remove components of the program that we would like to have in 2, 5, or 10 years. I mean, we had baked into the program some expansion spaces because building them later is really, really difficult and really expensive. But if we're trying to reduce, then we may have to eliminate some of those expansion spaces. We had a large training room, and it was going to provide lots of different capabilities for us, but we can decide that it's because in order to get some significant money, we have to make cuts of not 5 and 10 square feet. They have to be 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 square feet, because you won't, with the time we're spending talking about it every day, we can take out a room and the price is not going to change because the price is escalated. So you have to make a significant reduction, and the program is going to be significantly reduced. We don't fool ourselves that we're getting the same fire station just because we've massaged it. We're gonna lose some flexibility. We're going to lose some spaces. We're going to lose some functionality, but the station still has to work. And I think we can make recommendations from the committee, but I think it's a conversation that we have to work through and then come back and present it and see if we can live with the new recommendations of the new program statement.
Larry, could you define that? Who do you see doing that? And when you say,
well, I think critical is obviously the person who's going to be running the business, which is the chief. Whether the chief wants to include any of his staff would be up to him. We obviously need the architect, and then we can decide if, you know, what group from the committee and or some of the other folks from the community that you'd like to include. But it's essentially a working session. Listen, ask Jeff. Has he ever done this before, and how is it best done? I mean, this is not a new concept, right? It's been done before.
Do you want me to unmute Jeff to ask him that?
yes.
Okay. Jeff Shaw, I'm unmuting you. Here he is.
Can you hear us, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Did you hear the question?
I heard the question, ask Jeff.
That's what you're.
The question is,
Yeah.
what kind of a process would you see that would be helpful for both the chief and the fire department and you and our committee, that can have a frank discussion about how we can downsize this to some degree, and be able to make a list of what we're giving up? How do you see that happening?
Well, yeah, and Larry's right. I mean, it happens often that pretty much every municipal project we work with, that the client town doesn't have or can't sell, like you guys, what they would really like to have. And we have to talk about, you know, priorities and compromises. And I think there's just different appetites in different areas for what is worthwhile and where you draw the line. Is it worth, this is what I always come back to, is it worth spending the millions of dollars that's going to be needed to spend on the project if you're not going to be able to get a certain minimum of performance from the facility? You know, if you build a facility and it's only good for 2 years and then you maxed it out, well, that sort of seems like you didn't really make the best value decisions. But we want to try to get this thing to last as long as possible for the least amount of money. And that's really where we've got to go. So it takes all different forms, you know, in this particular process. There's a lot more public input than I usually see in many other communities. So I would say that process really needs to be as robust as you feel it can be to get the input that you need on the program. The challenge is, you know, you've got to temper that with the advice from the fire department, the folks that are going to be operating the facility and have the knowledge about how they need to use the building and how these spaces go together. You know, if you don't have people that are familiar with how fire stations operate, you might get a lot of ideas that, you know, spin the wheels, but don't actually make any progress. And so I think there's a point at which you gather your ideas, you maybe meet with the committee, talk about them a bit, and then you bring the chief and, you know, us on to look at what's left over after you guys have picked through and decided which ones are you know, have merit and want to actually consider them, and then you bring this on to go through them. That can happen early, that can happen later. We were prepared if these other working groups came up with solutions, we were prepared to meet with them and kind of talk about them more real time and see if we can hammer something out together. That would obviously expend more of our time, which obviously equates to higher costs for the town. If a more efficient process might be to develop a list, and then we're asked to review that list with the chief and provide feedback on it. There's no like single silver bullet that's going to get it all done, and it might take multiple rounds, frankly, to get to where you need to be. But I think that at a certain point, once you've gathered the information from interested parties, you kind of have to move on to the more technical aspects of how these buildings work, and the folks that have done it and lived it and understand it best to advise you how to make the puzzle work. Because if somebody says you can get rid of this space, but we come back and say that's critical to operating a fire station, you're not going to be in a very good decision point. You know, it's not going to help you much to have looked, you know, spend a bunch of money looking at removing that space.
Okay, thank you. So I think we just need to think about this, and let's see if we can come up with a plan for our next meeting and decide does everybody want to sit in on and with the chief and Mike and this group really hammer that away, or do we want to have somebody else just kind of narrow it down and then bring it to this group and for discussion?
I'd love to be involved in it, because I'm concerned that from the beginning, Jeff and his team knew that this is a budget minimum project. We've had them squeeze the buildings a couple of times didn't we start at 24,000 and we were at 20,000?
20,800.
And now people from outside are saying there's 20% savings we've ignored and they found immediately. And I'm concerned what that is. So I'd like to find out, why did these people think there's 20% they can save immediately in one meeting that our architect, our OPM, and this committee has never thought of or seen before?
Where did you get the 20%?
Well, didn't Mark Barbadero said he could take the building down to 16,000? We're at 20.
Oh.
I mean,
Well,
wouldn't Jeff have done that already
Even
if it was
17,000.
plausible? One of the meetings that when we first started talking to Jeff, he passed out schematic drawings of the rooms, typical rooms. They were dimensioned, and we were told those are dimensions by
That's what this
code. So how can you make those rooms any smaller? those are the code-sized rooms. So where's the savings? A 20% savings getting rid of what? I'm interested to be involved in that if I can be.
If I can say,
Good.
Mac, I
Yes.
think it should be like the original purpose was to have the listening session that anybody from the community can be able to give us that feedback, right?
Right,
I mean, we
right.
gathered a small group that were
Right.
interested and we got that. We should get the information, feedback from that, bring this to this committee, and this committee was appointed by the select board to work on this project.
Right.
So I think we are straying away in multiple different directions, and I think we need to get back on track. Absolutely, what we needed to do, we did, right? Like, we needed to get that listening things going, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen as we move along. They can still continue, but in terms of like sitting and figuring things out with the architect and everything, as we have the list of what they are giving us, we can then, as a committee, can decide, or even as a committee, we can say, okay, for this working group, maybe Sarah, Alan,
Sure.
and Larry could be part of that, right? And with the chief, so then they can look at it along with Jeff, and then come up with a plan and see if it's something feasible. So I just think the whole point of the select board selecting this committee, I think we are. It looks to me as like this committee doesn't seem to know what our original charter is at this point.
I really thought that the meeting we had last night was the goal, to come up
Okay.
with a specific list of things that I
Okay,
could bring
awesome.
back. But that did not happen for a variety of reasons. And I will go back to that group and say, just what you said, we need some very specific things and then our committee will discuss them, and we'll see what we want to forward to context.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think, Sarah, that that's a reasonable thing from what we did last night?
I was going to say, with the list that Mark provided us and the other comments that we received last night from John, those two combined it's a list that we can reformat some of the language perhaps and then talk about it here. I think that we have it. I don't know if there's anything else.
Mm-hmm.
If there is, maybe you can ask them to just email it to us and we can go through it. But I mean, 2, 3, 4. I wrote down the notes. There's a list of like 7 or 8
You
things
think you
plus
could
what
help
Mark
me
had.
prepare something for next meeting?
Yeah,
that we can
I
all
think
look
we're
at?
there. I really do. I think that they came up with a list of things, and I think we're there, and we're all agreeable that this needs to happen.
Yeah, and I
So-
think we all think it needs to happen.
yeah.
It's
Does
just
it
the
make sense to
process.
pay Jeff to look at this first? And for Jeff to say, good idea, but here's why it doesn't work? Or
Well-
here's why we didn't do it for you, before it comes to us and we say, that's a great idea, and then
Wait,
Jeff
Sarah
says,
looks like she's about to say something.
Here's the thing, though. It doesn't cost us anything to do it and put it together
I
first.
know, but why agree to somebody's good idea if Jeff says that's a good idea, but here's why you can't do it?
Well,
And that's what we're gonna get to. I think is like I think what Jeff was saying too is like we can meet together first and then go to him because we might be
well,
able to
because
narrow it down
and
more.
there is some expertise on this
Yeah.
Between
board,
Larry
right?
and Sarah.
And
Yeah.
and the chief,
Yeah.
who
The
can
chief.
say,
Yep.
you know, this is great, but this, you know, I mean,
Okay.
he understands the.
I just keep
yeah.
thinking $4,000 a day.
I get it.
Yeah.
You
I
really gotta
believe
save
me.
some serious money to
Seriously,
justify these delays.
I don't disagree.
And there's
I-
also a difference
don't
between can't do it and shouldn't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
with.
Yep.
Chief, go ahead.
Oh, yes.
I'm all right.
No, no,
No, I'm
no,
just-
we want to hear what
so-
you have to say.
One, Mac, I'm sorry. Like, I know that you didn't mean that the way it sounded. I
Yeah, I
apologize
didn't.
for coming like that, right? So, but one of my biggest concerns, I'll be honest right now, is time, right? And part of my reason why I want to participate is because I feel like we're somewhat running out of time. And if I can answer questions and be involved in a process sooner rather than later to help move this along,
absolutely.
I really think that that would be a step in the right direction, because there may have been things last night that I could have, you know what, that's a great idea, let me go back and evaluate that with my staff and see what they think. or I could have provided an explanation, and that could have like taken us away from something. So that is part of the reason I wanted to participate, is because I feel like we're getting crunched for time. We have to have something ready to move by December, and me personally, I'm starting to question with everything that we're planning. Hey, let's do this, and then we're going to do this next, and maybe we'll come back and I'll talk about this next.
Yeah.
Are we as a group going to be able to have something ready to go before December? Because we're going to have to do a lot of explanations to the public before that December as to how and why we got there. And that is my concern right now. Like, we're in the middle of August. Like, I know it feels like summer just started, but we are in the middle of August. We really need to, if we plan on bringing something to the public and getting the public on board and explaining the thought, you know, and being transparent and showing them how we got there, we need to move, is my opinion. That's not a fact. Maybe it's my
No.
opinion. Just want to put that out there.
But-
But I feel like we need to move, and I just, if I can participate sooner to help move the process along, please, I really would like to.
And it's not December. So just to be clear, we need to have the warrant to the printer in November.
Let's.
So the information that needs to go for that December meeting needs to actually be ready. I don't even know what the deadline is for that. We haven't looked at that yet, but it's gonna be early November, right? Because the for the information for the warrant for the October 14th, it goes to the printer on September 12th. So you're a month in advance, at least, a minimum, so, you know.
Okay, I think we got to move on here. So I think we have a plan, and Sarah, if we can work on that together and get something ready for the next meeting that we can discuss with everybody here, I think that would be helpful. All right, so we have this long list of sites. Some of these sites we've obviously discussed before. Some of them were discussed by a previous committee, and they're on this list now because we've had community people say, what about this and what about that? And we'd like to get this squared away. We're not going to vote to take anything off the list tonight, but Mike is going to take some notes on this chart that he has, and we can all take our notes, and so that the next meeting we need to be prepared to get this list down to a less than a handful, or a small handful. So let's just look quickly. 296 Middle Road is the land that is owned by the town. It's behind the current DPW offices up the hill there. Mark Barbadaro, the chief, Mike, and I walked on that land earlier this week. The pros are certainly a pro that it's already owned by the town. There are a couple of difficult things. There's not a large plateau. Would have to be a lot of fill brought in there, and the roadway to get to out back would have to be a shared road, probably with the DPW, which is not something that we would really like to do.
By shared road, you mean the DPW driveway?
Yes, the
Right.
DPW
The
driveway.
current driveway.
Yeah, it could be widened a little bit, but it drops off pretty fast on the right side of that driveway.
Yeah.
So there's definitely not going to have two different driveways there.
Ideally, we would like to have a straight driveway, not a curving driveway as we're approaching Mass Ave. So I don't know if there's a way to reconfigure it or not, but the current driveway as it stands it's very narrow and there's a lot of turns in it.
So.
The sight lines are pretty good.
Yeah, onto Mass Ave. The one thing that came up when we were buying this building, because that whole thing was configured exactly the way it was, we bought it that way. There were people actually on town floor who were very concerned about DPW trucks coming down that driveway, going onto Mass Ave, particularly in the winter. So that was one of the questions that came up. I have a question. We're not going to vote these, but
Right.
if we know that it's not going to work, we don't want to just say, put it lower on the list or anything? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
because it says possible vote, so I'm just trying to understand.
So-
It looks like at the bottom you have like viable site, likely not viable,
So
can we
there
not
is a color
highlight?
code there. If you like, I can apply the color code to anything you decide is
should.
viable to keep moving, or looks not viable,
So
or
what are
somewhere
your
in
three
between.
categories?
What's it, well, green is viable, you know, yellow is likely not viable, and red, not viable. And that would be, again, like you said, not voting it off today, but, so at least you get some prioritization to the list. So you narrow it to where you want. Because later in the meeting, you're gonna talk about spending some money on a couple of sites, potentially, right?
All right, what, can we just think of it as 1, 2, and 3? What would we give that site at this point?
Can I just, the back side of it, it is it's wetlands, you guys walked it. What are your thoughts? We didn't walk it, you know, so I know what we think about the driveway. I've been at the top of the hill when we bought the property and looked down the back. Seems to me it's a cliff. But what are your thoughts? You guys walked it.
You want to?
Chief?
Yeah,
Mac?
there's a little plateau out there, and then it drops off very significantly. So a lot of fill would have to be to make that level enough to have a firehouse in there. It would be a significant operation to make it big enough to have a firehouse there.
And the firehouse would go at the top of the hill next to DPW,
No, behind it.
behind DPW. And the top is really narrow. There's the building, and it's kind of narrow back there. How does that affect DPW operations?
Well, there's
So, if you want, I can kind of describe what the site looks like. Looking down on it, at the back of that site is the DPW building. Behind that, they have apparatus parked, I'm using a fire term, but trucks.
Parking lot,
And tractors and stuff in their parking lots. And I think I shared with you, or someone shared with you a diagram that was conceptual that Mark put together of where the one spot where a fire station might go. It's behind DPW and to the right. So there's a little bit of space between the two buildings. To put that building there, it would displace some of the DPW vehicles and equipment that are currently there. And that goes from the back of that site, at the back of the property that was leveled up to, you know, when the parking lot was originally built there. There's a stone wall. Behind that stone wall, it drops 8 or 10 feet down, and then there's a plateau that Mac was describing, and it's about 75 feet wide by 50 feet deep. That's the one plateau. And then you've got 2 ravines, one to the left, one to the right, that drop down towards the wetlands. And I forget what the drop is, 30 or 40 feet from that plateau down into the wetlands, you know, that's between those ravines. So it's tough terrain, and we all 4 of us agreed on that it's tough terrain, and it would require a substantial amount of fill to bring it up to something that you could build on.
And there's only one driveway in and out, so it's not like we would have a driveway for the trucks, and then, you know, we keep talking about a pedestrian, or, you know, and then the apparatus driveway, so there's only the one driveway that we couldn't really add a second driveway. It doesn't sound like, there's no way.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only one aspect of this site that makes sense, and that is that the town owns it and we wouldn't have to pay for it. Besides that, it's a very expensive site, and it really doesn't meet any of the desired criteria for a fire station. You have one driveway that rises a hill that both cars are going to be taking, fire trucks are going to be taking, and DPW vehicles are going to be taking, and then you're going to spend millions of dollars on site improvements. And we're going to produce the largest, most expensive building in town, and no one is going to see it.
So I think that becomes likely not a viable site. That's a 2 or a 3. I mean, right?
What else?
Or like maybe a 2?
Where would anybody else put that, a 2 or a 3?
I'll put it at the 3, if it's going to cost so much, and if it's 3 things that is.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the exact cost, but when you're talking about doing filling of 10, 20, 30 feet, it's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Mark estimated that would be $350,000 for the fill. That's what he said.
I don't know.
We have
Yeah.
the fill numbers from 502 because that was 6 feet of fill, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3, oh, I think it was only 3, was it?
No, it
No,
was
it
the
6
bill-
We
it
are
was
supposed
6
to
feet.
raise it up to.
6 feet.
Was it?
I
Yeah, okay.
don't know it off the top of my head. I'm just saying that we had numbers for it.
Okay. I'm hearing that it's either 2 or 3. What?
Well, I'm just saying, if we were to label this a not viable site, we shouldn't revisit it again.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
right?
Yeah.
So if there's no chance we'd ever consider it based, none of these other sites are better than that one, just take it off the list, make it not viable.
Can I ask though, because like that property goes back to Middle Road, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Is it a possibility to have it closer to Middle Road, or are we not
Wetlands.
even discussing that either?
So,
What is the answer to that?
So from, if you accessed it from Middle Road, you're coming up through the community gardens, and then back beyond, I haven't walked all the way back there, but as far as I could walk and see from the DPW site, it goes down and it turns into wetlands. I know that at some point when it comes back out to Middle Road, it's not wetlands, but I believe it does run into the community garden.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. It's at the it's the end of Depot Road and Middle Road is where the community gardens sit.
Well, why wouldn't we build it there and have the access there at the intersection of?
That would be a more cost-effective access, but then all the fire trucks, in order to get to 111, are going to have to go down,
Middle Road.
Middle Road,
So Chief, what's your thoughts on that?
and it's quite a distance.
Yeah, it's not 300 feet from the corner.
Obviously, the site supports the programming. Without a traffic study and without seeing that, I would like to see what traffic engineers and what people would say, because obviously, Middle Road is not, it's not a main thoroughfare per se.
Right.
I just would be curious as to what that would do to the response times in the town. That would be my major concern.
can we get, Becky, what's the address from the community gardens?
296 Middle Road.
Yeah.
Is it is 296? Okay, all
Yeah,
right,
it
okay.
is, it's on the end of that.
So it might be viable on the Middle Road side, but not on the
111.
111 side. So we could put this likely not viable, leave it in the middle.
Middle, yeah.
But if we're gonna
there's
look at it
option
as a
in
Middle Road
Yeah,
property, right?
Is that a reasonable, is it really enough land there? I didn't ever look at that side, end of it.
Yeah, I looked at it, the constructability from Middle Road is much more viable
then, yeah.
in that location, but then you have to then understand what the impacts are of driving down Middle Road.
Well,
And I will say, as somebody who drives down Middle Road at least once a day, if not more, there is, once you come out of the community gardens and you're gonna take a right towards Mass Ave, it does get curvy down there. People walk. You do need to go slow, because there's no going fast, because there's people who are walking up the hill that you can't see. It's a blind spot. I remember when we had the school buses, we had an incident where the bus driver had to stop further down the road and the kids had to walk down the road because where she stopped, there was a blind spot and she was not comfortable stopping the bus there for fear of getting hit. So it is not as clean of a sight line as other side streets.
And I would also add, based on the feedback we got on Stowe Road, where the fire trucks were going to basically be traveling 350 feet to get to 111, this is well over 350 feet. This is a half a mile before you get to 111. So you have all those issues multiplied times 10 that we had on Stowe Road.
All right, can we give it a 2 and move on?
Yes.
Yep,
All right.
Agreed.
I listed mine in my linear fashion, in my linear mind, in order of going west. So 72 Stowe Road was obviously just across from that. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on that because we already,
No.
so
That would be a
We
one.
listed as a 1.
do we want to list that as a 1?
Yeah.
Yes.
There is certainly a fair amount of negativity in the community about it now. So 502,
You're saying numbers, is it okay if I use this color code?
Color.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes.
fine, that's fine.
I just didn't want to have to remember the colors.
Yeah, that's all right.
I can remember 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
502, I mean, we spent a lot of time on that, and certainly that's a possibility. So I think,
And I think we have to consider it in light of all these analyses that we're going to be considering a building footprint that will potentially be smaller than the ones that were used for the previous studies. So 502 works better when the footprint is smaller.
so Larry, what would you give that, a 1 or a 2?
I think it's a viable site when you're fully cognizant of some of the things that you give up. meaning
so-
the potential expansion of
It's
the
like a
police
1.5.
station,
And then-
you know, potentially not as much parking as you'd like. You know, there are certain compromises, there are certain things that we give up by staying there. And there's obviously the cost of relocating during construction.
Swing space. Yeah.
But in terms of the site being viable, I think the site is viable.
Yeah, it's viable.
Sarah?
I was gonna say, if we're only talking about the viability of the
Right.
site,
Not the
I
cost
would
of
the
say
site.
it's a 1.
Yeah.
It is viable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the site is viable.
Yeah.
The best thing it has going for it is the public would approve it.
Well-
All other things, there was, nobody
Well-
would
We are
be
not sure
against
though.
that.
That
We're
we
not
should-
Well,
sure
They may
because of
approve
the
site,
budget.
but they may not
Despite
approve the
the
cost.
cost.
They may
Well,
not approve the
I'm t-
cost.
No,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just talking about the site and having a firehouse there. I think everybody would be happy with that.
But it goes hand in hand, everyone would be happy with it,
yes.
but they have to be willing to
All
pay
right.
the premium for it. so.
All right,
All right, so that's gonna be a viable site.
577 Mass Avenue is the old DPW site, and
Okay.
we know there's a lot of wetlands there and with a narrow frontage.
The town just
There.
remodeled that site and put a whole above-ground fuel storage and distribution system
Right.
there, right in the middle of the site.
Right.
I think that is not viable. Based on the wetlands, the storage shed, we gotta move the salt shed,
And the
we've got the
fuel
fuel thing, I
storage.
mean, we have, and actually, we would then need to consider where we're gonna put the DPW trucks that are already there. They're still using that property, it's not abandoned.
Well, plus,
So-
if you don't move the fuel distribution,
Yeah.
you have to design the fire station so all the town trucks can still get there to use the
Yeah.
fuel.
So will we see
Yeah,
that
and
as a...
also what we found is that we needed about 2 acres, 2 clean acres to do our program.
Right.
Right.
And this site is 2.3,
Yeah.
but it's only 200 feet wide, which doesn't allow us to do dual access, which was one of the fundamental decisions that we made at the very beginning as to how we wanted this fire station to function. So and the wetlands reduces the 2.3 acre or the 200-foot wide site further, so the site doesn't meet the dimensional requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
All right,
So
so-
not viable?
Are we happy with the
It's not,
three?
I don't think it's viable.
Yeah, that's.
Chief, are you okay of rolling that out?
Whatever you guys go with.
Oh,
So I
Uh,
was looking at that site, plus the site next to it, plus the site next to it. If we had 3 sites together, could it be viable?
Well, then you got, what, 28 acres almost?
Most of it is
Wait.
wetlands in the back.
The 502, not 502, the
577, 593,
Yeah.
and 611.
611's not on the
611.
list, and somebody, that's a viable business.
I thought it was on, I thought it was in the email.
611? No,
611.
that's an actual business. Right?
yeah.
My-
We haven't talked
I've
about
never
that.
looked at it.
I thought you meant 750, but that's a different
No,
site
that's
totally.
totally the other way.
Well, you
I
know, there
was-
is something else going for both of those sites that you're talking about. There's no abutters. If that's important, that's a positive. Might not mean anything, but we haven't, no one's ever said in the pros column, no abutters. That's a positive thing.
Well,
Okay.
I think we understand that 593 has been taken off the market. Is that
Yes,
Yeah.
true? So
that hasn't been
there's
sold.
that, and then 611, we have no idea if anybody wants to sell that.
No.
And 593, I do know, because I know Kristen has spoken to this, because she was on the ZBA when they got I think they had to go for a variance for that, but please don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure. But she did say, in looking at that property, because of the wetland buffers, they build it out to the maximum, and she said, I think she said the variance would never allow, I've heard her say this, would never allow for a fire truck to be put there. Like, that's why it's situated the way it is. Like, you can't do mechanical work
Previous
there and stuff like that, so you couldn't bring a fire truck
Why are we
in
even
because of the buffer.
Are we okay with the 3 for 577 and
Yep.
593?
Yeah.
Yes, not viable.
Okay. 750.
That's,
Which-
I think it's,
So 750 is the
Is-
Lions property.
Is really
Right, that's what-
700 to 800, really.
Yeah. those two together, right?
So
The
it's,
eight-
Well-
it's 832 and
Well,
750.
I think we need to think of them separately,
That's the back entrance to the enclave, right?
yes.
Where the blue building is.
So we know that 750 is pretty narrow, and that, my understanding is there would have to be a shared driveway with the trucks and the
And the people.
cars.
And the turnaround was difficult because the back parking lot was very shallow. There was issues with just 750, so that's why we
Right.
took it off initially.
Right.
But if you could add 832,
Two.
putting aside the sight lines, then I think it works. I don't think it works just 750 alone.
Are you okay with that, Larry, if we say
Well,
seven?
yeah, I mean, Context did a very high-level conceptual study at 750 only, and again, it was with the 22,000 or maybe even the 23,000 square foot program, 2 stories, and it was very, very tight, and it didn't give us distinct separation between public and apparatus. So it really didn't work well. Now, if we had significant reduction to the footprint, and I think it would need to be significant, you know, it would work better. But close to, you know, 20,000, 18,000 square feet, it's too tight. Just doesn't, it's the question that we asked and answered before. Do we really want to go through and spend all this money and get a project that's really not functionally where we want it to be? And I would say that's where we would fall into with 750 alone. But 750 combined with 832 basically doubles our frontage, and I think it's very viable.
All right, how about if we give 750 a 3 and the combination a 1? How would it be?
Is that the one where there's zoning issues, though? That's,
So
Yes.
750 is the zoning issue. I don't know, 832 I think is.
isn't that the one that
I don't think that's town
building
The
center.
inspector wrote the
15,000
letter
square
about?
feet. We can't,
But that's just on 750. 832 I do not believe is a town
Well,
center.
you still want to put more than a 15,000 square foot building on it.
right.
Right, but that wouldn't be, so
832
is what, town center?
Yeah. I'm looking
Oh,
at
it
the
is,
zoning
okay,
right
so then
now.
there is a zoning issue, that is true.
So
So I
can we
would
give the
Combined it-
combination a 1 or
Or 2.
2?
a
Yeah.
two.
I'd say a 2 because
right?
of the zoning
Yeah.
and all the fighting.
Well, remember, we don't have zoning to do anything right now. So
Right.
if we find that this is the most viable location,
Yeah.
because it's on Mass Ave, there are limited abutters, it could be that it's the best location, and the zoning gets modified because town center didn't turn out to be what town center was intended to be.
Yeah, I don't think we ought to hold the zoning against it there, because that's going to have to be fixed somehow.
Yeah.
So I'm between a 1 and a 2 here.
2 is what we said, right?
I'm thinking 2, but
Yeah.
I think two.
I
Sarah?
I think it too.
And is everybody saying that because of the zoning, or are you saying that because of the constraints of the
it's not
sites?
only that,
I think-
we don't even know the cost to buy it.
Yes, well,
I mean, the other
Well-
site's 1.4 million, what's that site gonna be? At least another 1.4, right?
Yeah.
well,
Wouldn't you think?
Well, not necessarily. I mean,
it'd be over $1 million anyway.
Mike can opine a little bit more on that.
So I think you can make this a viable site, but there's a lot of depending on the sight line we're gonna talk about later, right? The traffic analysis. I think that needs to be the first thing. So yes, it's viable if that's all we're looking at. Is this viable, yes or no? Yes, it's viable. But there's a lot of buts, and then we need to eliminate those buts. So you can make it a 1 combined, but knowing that it's not a strong one. I would call it like a 1.5.
I just
Like really,
wanna make
truly,
it
like a
one, but
1.5.
What we can't do is end up with 72 Stowe Road on again.
No,
So
right,
If we wanna
right,
make that a
right.
1 so we can carry it through to the
Right.
end, let's
Yeah.
do that.
I think we ought to put the 1, we're going to, in a few minutes, we're going to
Yeah.
ask Context to look at the sight line, so 832, now we're at
750 a 1.
886. That's a new one. That's at the corner of Hughes Road. And Chief and I went up there, and we actually drove onto the property the other day. And the problem is, we believe it's a huge chunk of
Ledge.
ledge.
We actually looked at that.
Otherwise, there are very nice homes up on Hughes Road, and I'm guessing there would be another home there if it could have been buildable there.
How does,
So
it's
we
not-
looked at that
But-
in previous,
I went and
No, we didn't.
went to that's the
Yes, we
site that
did.
has
Oh, we
like
did.
Previous
abandoned
committees looked at
construction
that.
equipment on it,
yes.
right?
Committee.
Yes.
Why is ledge a problem if you're not doing a basement? You just gotta level it off a little bit? Or what's the stopping point? Because there's ledge there.
so
What-
have you looked at, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's like the property is kind of road and then there's ledge. You'd have to blow out the ledge to be able to build back. Like it's 5 acres, but
Well,
it's,
it's pretty flat up at the top.
Yeah.
Oh, so you'd have to go to the
Are you saying
top
you'd make a
and-
new entrance to it from 111, or you'd go on Hughes Lane?
Well, first of all, the sight lines are really good there. And it's not as steep as we thought it was.
Right.
And you probably could go directly there or out
I
onto
thought there was something
Hughes
from
Lane.
Les
I thought you'd come on
right?
Hughes
Like,
Lane and then take a
didn't
left,
see-
where the abandoned dump truck is.
Yes.
That's how it got there, Hughes
Right.
Lane and up.
Right.
I didn't see like a peak of granite sticking out of the ground.
well,
If-
we looked at this in a previous committee.
Yeah.
And I believe Les did send something. I believe the engineer looked at it and said it is ledge. So we looked at it and there was a significant
Yeah.
amount of blasting.
Previous report says too much ledge.
Yes, it was heavy ledge, and so it was enough ledge that the previous committee, and this is like 2 or 3 committees ago, because
Yeah.
we've already,
Yeah.
we've
Well,
looked
this
at all
is
these properties,
20
like, this is the 5th time we looked at them.
2021.
Yeah, so, okay, so that was 2 or 3
It
committees
says
ago.
too much ledge, but
Yeah,
we don't know the program that they were trying to put on it, do we?
it's the same program, we've carried this through. Once we went from public safety to fire, we've carried it through the fire
Do
program.
we want to give it a 2 just enough so that we could do a little more research on the ledge?
Just saying,
Sure.
I don't, yeah, I don't know.
All right, moving right along. 795, 975, dyslexic here. We talked about that before. We know the cost is 3.5 million, and there's a lot of ledge there too. So
But there's also
Well, plus it's
wetland
straight up.
crossings, there was other
that's the
stuff
one
in
you and I
that.
walked
We did.
last year when I first joined the committee.
We did.
You gotta cross a wetland,
Yeah.
Right.
and then it's straight up. And there were test pits already dug,
Yeah.
because the guy next door was thinking about developing it, the guy that owns the site next door.
Right, and he's in the process, he's got an application in to develop that, so I think this one's probably completely off the market.
Yeah,
So we okay with the 3 there?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So 1223.
Complete.
We
wetland.
just looked at that a little bit. There's 11 acres there. It's just before Burroughs Road.
But it's owned by the 1300
It's owned by the
people,
same
right?
people that own 1300.
And that's all wet.
And it turns out that out of 11 acres, there's a very narrow piece in the middle that's not even wide enough for the footprint of the firehouse, and you'd have to cross wetlands to get out to
So-
the 111.
So that's a 3.
So I would think that that should be easily a 3. 1223. So then there's 40 Cunningham Road, which has come up recently. That turns out to be 6.5 acres, but there's only 2 acres that is not in the wetlands. There are great sight lines there. I don't know if there would be any pushback from Paddock Estates but it really, it just isn't big enough. So,
I
Okay.
thought even the 2 acres was not like,
It wasn't
Was
a
it
clean 2
clean?
acres.
yeah.
It
Wasn't
it's
like
a
it was,
narrow.
yeah, it's a narrow.
It's not like
It
a
was-
square
Yeah,
2
it was
acres,
like-
it's a
yeah.
narrow 2 acres.
It was 245 feet wide as you look at it from Mass Ave without taking into account any setbacks. So it's very narrow for, for the program.
And there's an awful lot of abutters there.
what do you say, Sarah?
One of them.
Well, there's one abutter on Cunningham,
Yeah.
but Paddock Estates is right there as well,
Yeah.
so.
I thought it was, first of all, the good sight
Pretty
lines.
far away from
It's a good, out onto 111, if we could have the cars go down Cunningham and to go in from the back and the trucks go out to 111, it would be a
But you're
perfect sight.
saying, but you
You
guys
can't.
walked it, you can't
Yeah,
do it, so
yeah,
it should be a
yeah.
3.
Right.
Okay, so we should make that a 3.
It isn't, but
No.
So
Very narrow.
1300 Mass Ave. Now, that's where the brick building is. There's a
That's
lot of
viable.
discussion about whether the parking lot is big enough to put a firehouse, but there's issues about
The wells.
the wells.
But
there.
it's still viable at this point, right?
I think it is. The sight lines would be good.
Yeah.
And you wanted to talk
Well,
about that, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about, all the forums we had, the first and largest component that everybody said is there's too
Cost.
much cost.
Yep.
So when I look at a site like that that has a building on it, it makes me wonder, couldn't we leave the building, build the firehouse at the other end of the parking lot, rather than dual access garage bays, single access garage bays lined up against the woods, far corner has an administration building, and then ambulance bays to the right of it. And that leaves room to build additional bays in the future. And it also leaves the town the use of that building. And it has a tenant in it. So if we were to be a landlord, couldn't the tenancy pay for some of the cost? And couldn't the building become something else for the town? Like a community center? Or instead of storing all the town records in the leaky basement of the old library, would that become a good place for the town to have an archive or something? It just makes me wonder, is that building not even worth saving? I mean, we're going to buy a building to rip it down.
We don't
I
know
just-
that though,
we-
right, Alan? Yeah.
I think it's something, I just think we need to be careful with the language around that, because we don't want people to assume the building's gonna stay and become a community center. I
Well,
worry.
I'm just saying as an
I know, I
example.
understand, but I've heard that example from other people.
Oh, you did?
Yes. And we looked at that, again, a few committees ago, we looked at this, there's a report, HKT did a report on this building. The building itself wasn't viable to restore or fix into, renovate into a fire station.
So we'd have to rip it down.
Well, if we're gonna use it as a fire station, yes, it was not, but you could use it for other stuff, but the building's old. It's like stepping into a time warp. There was other issues with the building about code and everything else. It's a big building. There's a lot to think about. The biggest thing is the wells in the parking lot. I'm not sure you can build on top of the wells, right?
Well, you
And
wouldn't build
that's-
them, they'd be under the parking lot.
But there's wellhead protections, and again, I'm not a water
Yeah, I'm
expert.
not either.
I'm just saying that I think that that's, and I believe that's what we heard from Mark. Didn't he send an email to that
Yes.
effect, basically? And that was one of the concerns back then, is that these wellheads were under, so you'd have to abandon those wells, and move, there's a lot of things. And behind it is all wetlands, it's a wolf swamp.
Hmm.
So you can, I don't know how far back in the parking lot you can go,
Well, plus I know the septic system's across the street.
And the
Yeah.
septic system's across the street
Larry
and
might
down the road.
also have, Larry, we looked at this one, like towards the end of the Boxborough Building Committee, right? Before
Yeah,
we
well, I
passed-
mean, there were a number of issues. Firstly, it was whether or not the owner wanted to sell it. And if he did want to sell, when we talked to the owner, they had no interest in selling it. They wanted to rent us space. But in the interim, they've only rented, like, I think Mike knows more, maybe a third of the building, and they're seeking abatement. It's a 1980s vintage, inexpensive office building. It's nothing special. And if you keep the building and try to find other uses, remember you have to park for those uses. So you're basically taking away a large portion of your parking. So the building's viability to be fully used, it has to be supported by parking. But we're taking the parking away to do another building, which also needs parking. So the building doesn't remain viable when you take away the bulk of the parking. So I don't believe it's a viable site, and we haven't even considered the cost to acquire it.
So, but it can be a viable site.
Yeah.
If cost is no object. and
It's
put
got-
all
cost
the
is not-
stars
yeah.
along
If
it.
cost was no object and we were to demolish everything and start from a clean slate,
Yeah.
then we would first thing we have to do is figure out where are the wells going to go,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's sort of the first threshold of viability. You'd
Yeah.
have to understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Larry, one thing that is going for the site is there's no abutters there, right? Like, and
I
so,
agree.
yeah,
Right.
maybe
No, it's-
if the
It's
town
a
does.
flat level site, yeah. I
Yeah,
mapped
and-
that,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And the
And-
sight lines are great.
And the
Yeah.
sightlines
Yep.
are great, and if people don't want to have it in a residential area, maybe this is the other option, right? Like, we can either have, like,
Yeah.
multiple, if we're thinking about different options.
And the other
we-
thing
yeah.
is, we don't know what they would sell it for. So if they sold it, we have to remember there's a $6 million delta if we're at 502. So if you're starting there, But, and I don't know what the delta would be to go from our base, which, you know, obviously is a 72-store road building, right?
Yeah.
To go to the base, to go to 1,300. But if it's 6 million, or even 7 million, when we're spending $4,000 a day in escalation costs, 7 million, and it gets us to a place where we can now start building a building.
Yeah.
So I think this is viable. To me, it's viable.
Yes.
And I don't think we should dismiss it too quickly. I do agree with you, Larry, there's a lot of issues with it, but maybe we look at it, and if it's a $7 million delta, the town says, okay, but it's not in the residential area.
Yeah.
It's not 502 that has issues. We can do real programming on there, and it is a bigger site. There's a little more flexibility. I'd hate to just take that off as not being viable. I think we do need to keep
Well, Maria, in the past, you've been unwilling to spend money to determine the right place to go. Would you spend money to get over some of these thresholds?
I think for that property, given that this is the second time we've looked at it, if we
Yeah.
had, I think we should spend money on that property. Because if they're willing to sell it and we know that, and I don't know this, where the price is. So if they said, yeah, we're willing to sell it to you for $10 million, then no, absolutely not. But if it's some number less than that, and I think we should spend the money. I do think if we're trying, doesn't it, I don't know, Larry,
Yeah.
you're the architect. I just think it's not, we shouldn't dismiss it. And,
No,
you know, for the right.
I mean, the site characteristics are potentially good. It's on
Yeah.
Mass Ave, it's not in
Yeah.
a neighborhood, it
Yeah.
has good access, it's flat, but we do have to, there is the cost.
Yes.
And you know, it costs money to clear a site like that and to take down a building, but we have to start with the wells to see if it can work for our needs.
We're going to vote on that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So we can potentially go step by step to see if we can make some headway on it. So I would agree, I would support that.
I think it's yeah.
Do we have to own the land?
Do we have to own the land?
Yeah, why can't we lease the land for 50 years? And then we don't have to outlay anything and make them clear it to a clean lot
I
before we
think
take
Larry
it.
just explained why we really can't, even if the wells weren't there, we can't take the whole parking lot and have the building there.
No, take the building down.
Okay, but first of all,
You're
for them,
saying do a land lease.
Yeah,
You're
land
saying do a
lease.
land
You
lease.
Yeah,
think
land
for 50
lease.
years.
They take the building down and leave us a clean site to build on, but
They
they
have
own the land.
But they have to agree to that, right?
but then you're talking about, you'd have to look at what that potential long-term land lease is to the
Yeah.
town. But I mean, it's gonna be more than, let's say they pick a number, let's say it's $5 million. A 50-year lease is gonna be more than $5 million. And so we need to be able to, that just financially for the town
But
side
it might be
makes no
cheaper
sense.
in the early years, though.
Yeah, I understand, but long-term, that, you know, it needs to be a sustainable financial model.
Lease to
Long-
buy.
So
think
right
we
now,
need-
we're just deciding to keep it
At
a one.
one.
Do we
Keep
agree?
it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the last one was 1414, and
Well, you know, the last time they looked at that site, just for information, was in 2021. All they found wrong with it, it's not feasible due to the high cost and potential issue with the wells. The same thing we said
Well, it wasn't
tonight.
feasible, in 2021, we looked at it, it was, can we renovate the building?
Okay.
That's what was not feasible
Oh.
due to the high cost. Purchasing it and renovating that building, the renovating of that building wasn't feasible, because the way it's built, we couldn't bring it up to the standards of building code that you need for a public
wasn't
safety
that
building.
combined, yeah, wasn't that combined fire?
No, yeah, at the time it may have been, it may have still
it
been a
was.
Are we
combined.
talking about
but
1,300 or
1,300.
1,400?
1300.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was using the existing building and renovating it, and there was a concern
All
about
right,
the
let's
wells.
move on,
So-
one last one. 1414, and we've, again, gone over that. And Larry, Alan, you thought you
Well,
might have a comment.
again, I'm
about that.
interested in that site because I don't know much about it. I know where it is and what it is. And it makes me wonder that if, I think that's owned by Lincoln Properties? is
Yes.
it? So if we let them develop the land the way they want to, down behind the biotech center, down toward the solar field, what would the income to the town be from taxes? And would the taxes help, certainly would offset some of the cost of a firehouse over 30 years, but how much would it offset it? Because the town's concerned about cost. There's not real direct butters there. It abuts 495. I mean, it's behind Old Harvard Road where I live. But I'm wondering, what's the revenue potential to the town, and does it go a long way to reducing the cost of a firehouse?
It probably would. I don't know what that revenue potential is. We could find that out from the assessor. Here's the thing, you say there's no abutters. It is the old Harvard Road people
Yeah.
that shut that project down the first time. And so there are abutters. I think there would be significant push. Well, first of all, we don't control the back. We don't control the zoning on the back 100. And so we can't make a promise to them that you can develop the back the way you want, because that's the planning board, right?
Right.
So we can't bet that the planning board's going to give them whatever site plan approval or change the zoning to make, it's not Lincoln that owns it, they manage it for the company that owns it. But, you know, they may want to do warehouses. Well, it's not zoned for warehouses, and we don't have the authority or the purview to zone it in any way. So we can't make that side of the deal.
No, I get that part. But I
Okay.
picture that being like kind of what's on Codman Hill Road. There's industrial development along Codman Hill Road. It's not residential. It doesn't need the schools necessarily, unless they were to put the homes there. There's the potential to get city water by coming across 495 if they needed city water, but how much water does a warehouse need? Or whatever it is they might want to put there. I'm just wondering, since the issue with the town is cost.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I thought it was a great idea back then, but it was, you know, it was shut down by the town. There was a lot of pushback by the town. And I don't expect that if we say we want to develop and the front part is, it's clean. There's an AT&T variance that goes through, and the original plan that we had for just the fire station, we weren't, at that point, it was just the fire station there, we could do like a road over the AT&T variance. We couldn't put a building. Lincoln Properties was going to give us access in back with parking for the conservation lands, and the front site itself, you know, they were going to hook us into their wastewater and all of that. So it was a really good, viable site. The problem is that they want the whole world for it, and we have a town that doesn't necessarily want to give them the world, and, you know, there wasn't a lot of compromise
But
there.
without knowing what it does to that $30 million debt, the town may have a different view now. Now that they know how much things cost.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
My concern is if we say 1414 is where we want to go, and we want to put a building here, and all we have to do is let them develop the back 100 however they want. If we thought there was pushback on Stowe Road, Ellen, I think there'll
Well,
be
it doesn't have to be
significant-
however they want. We can control what they're allowed to do.
We also have the issue of, the chief was concerned about timing here. I don't think all that negotiation is going to happen before
Have you
November, December.
had any follow-up with 1414?
I have. So I continue to be in talks with Lincoln Properties at 1414, with the owner of 1300, and as Larry alluded, that I do have a little more information on 832. As far as, I do have prices, the starting point for 1300 and 832, that would be more appropriate for executive session. But, you know, I wanted to hold back on saying that to see, do you consider them viable otherwise? On 1400, I had a third meeting with them last week, and I have another meeting with them in a couple of weeks. And there are a number of issues, and I think the biggest thing Mac just said is timing to negotiate something, you know, to resolution. I think it's the things they're looking for include two things that involve zoning and one that involves water, and they're long-term things.
I think zoning, water, and then the third part is the amount of land that they want to clear, which I think was the town had a hard time.
And water, the select board has control over, but zoning you do not. The select board doesn't have control over that. That is a select board
Can
issue.
we go back to talking about the viability of 1414
Yeah.
though? Because is it viable? Because it will be set far back from the road. Same issue. I mean, not up high like the back part of that middle road site, but is it viable to have it set that far away?
Why would it be set
It's
back?
not that far away.
1414, isn't
Yeah.
it behind that commercial building?
No.
it's
So
the ball field.
when you're driving down, you pass 1300, there's woods.
Yeah.
Then you get kind of where Paddock Estates is. There's a section that's very woody, not woods per se, but like brushy woods. There's an AT&T variance, and you'll see it, the sign, and it's that portion that would be cleared. It's flat, it's in front. It's very viable.
It's,
Which
Uh-uh.
parcel
It's-
is
That's
it?
not it, they've been
When I
saying
look
it's-
it's not really in front.
It's the athletic
least-
fields.
It's the ball field.
Yeah.
And
So
it,
that's a different piece than we talked about last time.
If you look on the GIS, it comes up with an address of 1320.
That's why I was confused, because 1414 is the commercial property next to it.
Yeah, so last time it was 1414 was up front. It
No,
was.
this is you go in the entrance like you're gonna go to the hotel, and instead of taking a right, you go left, and you go past the biotech building.
Yeah.
And then immediately on your left, there's a ball field with
Okay.
huge parking next to it. It's a ball field that they're not using.
That was the old softball field.
That's it.
But when we talked, okay, so then when we talked 1414, it was the front parcel on 111.
Oh,
And it went back, and it was a number of acres that went back, right? It may have been 3 or 4 acres.
yeah, they might have changed what they were.
Maybe they're
willing-
changing what they're willing
Yeah,
to give
this
us,
is the
yeah.
one that I had always been talking with them about, is the old ball field in the back.
Okay,
So should it be like a 2 then?
That's 1320.
13, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so,
All right.
so this is different than
different
what
than what I was
1414
thinking.
was.
I know what you're talking about, and at first I figured that's what they were talking
That's what we
about,
talked about
because
last
it's in
time.
front of Adams Place,
Yes,
right across from the gas station.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
a little further down, yes, yes, yes,
That's what I
yes.
thought too, but then Mike said that he and the chief got there and it's. the
So
ball-
that's a different piece. So
That'll be
that
a
makes
two.
it, that might make it less viable, I don't know.
That'll be a 2 then.
I was gonna recommend, let's have it a 2 so that
Well,
it's not totally.
you know, 1320 is what they looked at in 2021. And they said it's complex negotiations, but they were promising. A development agreement with the owner, Lincoln Properties, was not possible in 2021. But
Yep.
we don't know why it wasn't possible,
We
other
do
than
know why.
Maria knows, because you just told us.
Right.
Because they want to build whatever they want.
And they would not give us the property until they got their site plan approved the way they wanted to. And there was,
maybe
no way
it's-
that was
But
happening.
that won't be happening by December.
No. But we'll still keep it as a 2. I think it's
Okay.
important to
Good.
not like take it
All
out
right,
completely.
we've accomplished that task. Let's-
So we're not voting any of these off until some
Right.
future meeting.
Right, the next.
But we're
next-
really gonna focus on the greens.
Yes, the
Okay.
next
So
meeting.
both of those are twos?
Yeah,
So
Okay.
not book.
we have a
just the
proposal from
14,
Context
is 2.
to do some site analysis at 1300 and to do a sightline study at 700. And as Mark said, there's something that has already been done about both of those things, so we'll make sure that Jeff has access to those 2 things. Maybe he does already. And the cost for us is 16,200, and that money would come out of the 87,000 that we voted last meeting. So it's not an addition to that 87, it's part of that 87. We originally had a bigger idea of what we were going to ask Context to do for the 87,000, but now we are asking them just to take off these 2 smaller pieces and for a fee of 16,200 to get definitive answers on the site at 1300 and the sight lines at 700, 832. Any?
So my question is to Larry, because he said, Larry, you said at 1300, it's viable, but you kind of wanted to look at it. I don't remember exactly the term you used, but like, look at the water first, can we move those wells, abandon them and move them, and do it that way? Is that what you were talking about with respect to this?
Yeah, and let me just, before we go there, let me ask you a question about the proposal. Is this a fixed fee or an hourly upset proposal?
It's a fixed fee.
Yeah, see, since we're going to take this in stages, because we could do some work into the wells and find out that it's not viable, and then we're done with that.
Right.
And if we agree to a fixed fee contract, then they get the whole fee regardless of the work that's done. That's why I think both of these are in stages. The Mass Ave one is we have to do some transportation analysis. On 1300, we have to do a well analysis. And then if we pass those thresholds, then we can go to the next stage. But I think they're incremental studies.
And so
What
I
do you
felt
think,
that way
Mike?
about five.
We'll have to ask
That's
Jeff,
fine.
obviously, but you think we need to then go back and renegotiate that, or?
No, I think that's, I would ask Jeff, but I think that's what we're looking at for.
I mean-
This is what we asked him for, was just a very limited scope study.
Yeah, I mean, if we could do it as hourly upsets, because a bulk of this is, I mean, they're going to manage and coordinate it, but it's going to go to some consultants. But Jeff's on, he could speak to it.
Yeah. So most of this is what you just described, Larry. It's sort of getting some level of due diligence, but not a full, like we did at 502 or 702.
Right.
It's not the big thing. It's just sort of enough to understand some of the bigger red flag type scenarios. So I don't have a problem if you wanted for us to just modify the language here so that instead of it saying total lump sum, it would be total not to exceed. And that we just, we for the most part, like you say, the engineers are doing 90% of the work here. And we're certainly not going to put a diagram of a building on a site until we realize, where the wells and the septic and all that other stuff has been worked out to. So I don't see a reason why the engineers couldn't be released a piece at a time to do, the different components. It's not a lot of work, but I think it still could be done on a not to exceed basis.
I would support that.
So,
And at that same amount of 16.2 as not to exceed?
Yeah, what's a not to exceed? I think that's fine. If that brings us to the answers that we need to make, to continue, I think that's right.
can I ask?
Yeah, at that point, Mac, you'd simply be able to say, we've done enough work, we don't actually need to go further, and there's a little bit of money left on the table that we didn't end up spending. Let's say, we find out that the wells there's just so many problems with those that we don't even do any more work to do a site, study of how the building could be configured. So we just stop it, and there's a little bit of money left over.
Right.
And there may be there's an engineer, Sue Carter, from Places that you may have come in contact with because she's reviewed. She may be a good person to use for some of this initial work on the well because she's familiar and I think cost effective.
Yeah, we know Places very well.
Yeah.
Sarah?
So HKT did include like a preliminary study of the 1300 Mass Ave site and looking at the wells. So I just wanted to know, in addition to what's already been completed, what are we doing above that? Because we already have a lot of that information from 2019. So what are we doing above that to confirm additional things?
Can you answer that, Jeff? Have you seen the HKT report yet?
Yeah, we certainly have their stuff, but as you guys have been requesting, we've really not spent any time digging into the data around some of these other sites because, we don't want to spend money if they're not serious contenders. So the first thing that we need to do is distribute all that information, review it, and have the consulting engineers digest it to determine what else is needed beyond what was done originally. So doing it as a hourly not to exceed is another useful tactic in saying, if we decided based upon prior reporting that we don't need to do as much work, we only need to do, a couple of the items because we can take as valid the prior work and build upon it, then that reduces the total cost.
So Jeff, you're saying in that case, we don't need to do like for a whole work, but hourly? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm saying that's actually a benefit to doing it as a not to exceed hourly basis. Then we would be able to simply just do the parts that are needed and not redo or duplicate anything because we would have already looked at what they had and decided, how we could build upon it. You're not paying us to redo anything. The other thing I will say is that it may require us to obtain technical documents that are not in the town's possession. HKT or their civil engineers from prior studies may have those documents. And when we first got involved for this particular project for 502, we were looking for HKT to provide certain additional documents they weren't able to give us, I think, 100% of what we were looking for. So I had to refusal. I think it's just, time had passed and they couldn't put their hands on everything. So granted, not much time by since these things were studied in 2019, but it does require us to potentially have some things that they may not be able to put their hands on. We'll see.
And it sounds like, Jeff, that if you find a real red flag, you would just stop, and you wouldn't.
I think we would want to report to you as we would normally weekly,
right.
And if we found something that, as in our normal weekly discussion, we all decided was the result of which indicated there's no point in doing any more work, then we would just stop.
Right. So
can I just ask, would that go for 700 to 832 Mass Ave? If the initial sight line came back and said, this is just not going to work for fire engines. We know there was a traffic study done. It was for vehicles exiting enclave, so that was different. Would it be the same thing? You would just stop and report back to us? Because that's my concern there too. I don't mind spending money, but if there's a red flag that comes up, I think it needs to, before we spend the next, come back, even on that one as well.
Yeah, that's really the main point of doing the 750 to 832 site on Mass Ave, is to do that sight line. So realistically, once we did it, there really wouldn't be much left to not do at that point for that particular task. It's really just all about the sight lines analysis.
And I entertain a motion to approve the maximum of 16.2 on an hourly basis.
I make a motion, I'm sorry.
Can I just interject that I think what we are offering to do is to modify this, so I would assume your motion is to approve a modified version of this?
That's what I was going to do, Jeff. I was going to make a motion to approve the contract as modified, not to exceed $16,200 for further exploration on 1300 Mass Ave and 750 to 832 Mass Ave. Does that work?
I second. Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I guess we have to do a Larry vote.
Yay.
Larry votes.
Sarah?
Aye.
Alan?
Sundaram, aye.
Okay.
Neil and I.
And Mac Reed? Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jeff, for that help. So now we have one other task here that we're considering a sense of the meeting, articles for the coming town meeting. And Dennis Reed suggested that the first one be put into 3 sections. And as you can see, the first one is that do people want to say that they want the least expensive and most viable location? And then he would, I believe, take a standing vote on that, isn't that, I think, what he said? That,
What he said was that he would, yeah, I'm not sure what he said about the standing vote, actually.
that's what I recall.
But not a ballot
Anyway,
vote? But not
he
a
would-
ballot vote?
not a
Is that the
ballot
whole
vote,
point?
no,
It would
just-
be like a
yeah,
raised
maybe
hand
he
or?
would do a voice vote, but anyway, so that's the first question. The second one is would they rather be in a non-residential area with a cost of the X, like the first one, plus $4 million? In other words, is the town willing to spend an extra $4 million to get out of a residential area? And
Approximately, right?
Yeah, so that's the
Approximately,
problem.
yes.
That's like, yeah, okay. Are we going to talk about these
Yes.
afterwards? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the third part is, would they be willing to spend an extra $6 million if it's on the current site? And I know that there's a disagreement about how much the swing space would cost, but that's the concept. We can change the numbers at some point, either tonight or in the future. But that $6 million was based on my understanding is 3.8 million based on the swing space, and 2.2 million with the additional 9 months of time and working in the smaller space. Is that you would understand?
I think we have, like, have we not, like, discussed this to nauseam?
it's kinda
Like, I think
confusing.
that was clear, like, even before the annual town meeting, we kind of went through this over and over and over multiple times. I think we need to go with
But
These-
what the experts and us and the
yeah.
numbers that we said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is, yeah.
Does everybody agree on
You
the
look
three
confused.
parts?
I'm a
I
little
don't know yet.
confused here. The least expensive is not necessarily the most viable, and vice versa.
Well, I think,
So-
yeah.
So you're implying if people vote for that, it's not only the least expensive location, it was the best location.
Yes.
Right.
That might not be true, and that's what people think they're voting for. It says least expensive and most viable.
Well, right now, we believe, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
No, go ahead, answer his question.
Right now, we believe that 72 Stowe Road is the most viable and the least expensive.
Right,
And that's
but aren't
what-
we trying to avoid that whole, we
Well,
need
that-
an alternative.
Well,
We're
no,
asking if people
that's-
care about if it's in a neighborhood.
Okay, well, the second one, where it says a non-residential zone, is residential different from agricultural?
Yes,
It's-
we're not
no.
looking at zoning, we're just talking about the residential.
location.
Location.
So
you
this
know.
No, I
isn't about
understand, but
zoning.
isn't the current firehouse in a residential zone?
Yes, it is.
So by voting for this, you can't build it where it currently exists, right?
And there's that,
Okay, I'm trying to understand this.
unless it gets rezoned. He's not wrong, right?
Yeah.
The,
And then
the
the-
problem I have with that one, though, is, can we just, for a second, if we're gonna talk about issues, I just am concerned about this approximately $4 million, because we don't know what that's gonna be. So with a sense of the meeting, if people vote for this, I don't wanna back us into a corner and say it's $4 million. It's the cost, because I'm assuming the base cost is the 72 Stowe Road cost, right? 30 million plus maybe $4 million.
So can I speak to the numbers in here? Not just the first three, but also the fourth one?
Again, it's the sense of the meeting.
There are
It's not
numbers,
binding.
yeah,
But people will
well,
go down to
there are
the.
numbers
you could
put
say it
in
was
here
4
as
million
placeholders to
at
get
that time.
some language in front of you
Right.
to put something into the
Two
warrant.
years.
And then the numbers need to be massaged.
Okay.
Including when we get to
So
the
these- okay.
fourth one.
So-
It's just a number plugged in there.
Okay.
And same when you get to the fourth one,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what the cost of green construction is, so I put 2 million in there. It might be 1 million.
I just want to make
I
sure
have
that
no
we
idea.
understand that as we
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah,
this.
these are just, it's just to plug something in there that is different from the other three articles.
It's a concept that we're voting on
Yeah,
here.
that's,
Exactly.
so this is just to vote on whether or not we should have these. This is not to vote
Right.
on the actual articles, right? Because I'm going to vote differently on the article than I would putting the article in the warrant. Does that make sense? So I'm okay with putting these in, but I may not vote for, all three of these different things.
Or all four.
Or all four of them, yeah. And the-
It's going to be one article.
I understand, but they're going to be four separate votes,
Yes, yes.
right?
Matt.
Yes.
They're going to be four
Yes.
separate votes.
Yes.
And our recommendation is going to be based on each vote. I am not going to vote, I know, for one of these locations. As a member of this committee, I'm going to vote against one location because I don't think it makes financial sense or long-term sense for the town. Tonight, our vote is to include this in the warrant.
Right.
That's the clarification.
Do we know how much time Mary gets to explain these? Because I think item 2 is a trick.
I think
Item two.
Dennis is going to give her a little more time.
Yes, we talked about that at BLF last time. Mary had 10 minutes last time, and we said, that's just not enough time for Mary or the planning board when they talk about zoning. Dennis said I think was going to be like, he suggested no more than 15 minutes, but I think if she said, I need 20 minutes, at your own peril, go for it. He's on stuff like this in the zoning, to both Rebecca and Mary, he said you can have the time you need to present this, because at town meeting, there was just not enough time.
After after Mary and Dennis spoke, she had reflected to Mac and I that Dennis would give her more time, like if it took 15 or 20 minutes to explain the whole concept of these four votes, and then it would be shorter introduction to each of the four, but give a time for a presentation on why these sense of the meeting votes are coming up.
Right.
Is that what you remember, Mac?
Yes. Any other general comments about this concept?
I want to make.
Go ahead,
I was
Sarah.
gonna say, I think it's a good concept to get feedback from the voters that are there. I think this makes sense. I'm concerned about the language saying the most viable location,
Exactly.
because there's no definition of what viable is. To me, that's a little subjective, because we've talked about a lot of different viabilities of sites.
Tonight.
Tonight.
We've got 5
Yeah.
greens that are viable.
So how about if we leave out that word? And just, I mean, the real
You just say
issue is the
least-
cost.
Yeah, the least expensive versus the next expensive and everything, and.
Well, Mary's gonna have to
But-
explain that the least expensive is not necessarily what the committee thought would be the most viable, because it's not.
To me, that
Possible.
we're essentially asking the town to give us like a band of money that they're willing to spend.
Right.
We're not asking for a site if we put it up, if we put it out that way. But I don't know
But if it's-
do we need that?
But we know that if it's one, if the town votes for the least expensive, that leaves us with one option. And it's disingenuous to pretend it's not 72 Stowe Road.
Well, wait a
Yeah.
minute, wait a minute, the least expensive could be the free lot at 1414. But you're saying it's not viable.
It's not,
It's a free lot if we let
it
them
may
do.
be a free lot. We're not sure that it
well,
is,
we
Alan. We
could
don't know what
negotiate.
those negotiations.
Give us the
but-
lot.
But it's not, you know what, it's not free. We need to give up a significant amount on the backside. There are people in this town who would say giving up the development on the back 100 acres is expensive.
That's why we're having a
Far
struggling
big
with what
expense.
viability.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm just saying that, you can take out the word viable. People are gonna still ask her, does that mean 72 Stowe Road? Because they watch these meetings and they understand that the $30 million project, which is the number that might be on that base project, is $30 million at Stowe Road. That this is gonna be $30 million, it's gonna be the Stowe Road.
I think we ought to be open about that.
I do too. So instead of kind of like, this isn't open, this is sort of like the least expensive and the most viable versus the least expensive, which currently resides on 72 Stowe Road. Like, let's be honest about it.
And we only have pricing for 2 sites at
Yes.
this time also.
But it's based on that, the 30, and then we add the 6 million to, if we go to 502.
Right, but we don't have pricing on.
That's why
That's why this needs to be more specific, in
Yeah.
my opinion, as if we're not hiding it, because we only have pricing on 2 sites. We're not
Yes.
gonna have pricing back for any of these other
Right.
sites.
As Alan said, 1414 or whatever that is might be cheaper, so.
But we're not gonna have pricing back on them, so if we're gonna
No,
ask
but it's
people how
not
much they
gonna be
wanna
too,
spend.
won't take Mary too long to explain the 3 green ones.
Well,
That's it. Why would she talk about the ones that might be viable and the ones that aren't viable? She would. So she can talk about 72 Stowe Road again, it's still viable, and it was viable in 2021 when the previous committee chose that one. They chose the exact same site for the same reasons we did. And we did their work again without referring to it at all.
so are we in agreement that we'd like to remove the word viable? How do you feel
no.
about that, Mike?
Yeah, and that's what Mary was looking for, was to get people's thoughts on the language.
And
Is it right?
Mike, what are the odds of us at least getting an idea about like the price on some of these?
We could schedule,
We
The
need
price being
executive
like if
session,
it were
you said.
1,300.
Yeah,
we could do an executive session.
Yeah, but for
and-
town meeting, for this article.
for this article. Do
So
you think,
let-
like at
yeah.
least a ballpark idea? Would we be able to get that, like,
Yes,
can it come after the executive session? Like, I mean, I know the select board hasn't even like,
yeah,
Can we
looked
start our
into
next
it.
meeting with an executive session?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna take the word viable out.
Alan, you look
Yes.
perplexed.
I know, well, I'm sorry. Now I'm struggling with the idea that if we take out most viable, then we're buying it on price, period. And the town says, of course we want the least expensive, get on with it.
But I think we just need to be honest about the location.
Yeah.
I almost
Oh, I
think we
think
just
Mary
need
has
to
to
say,
explain it.
Mary needs to say, this is 72 Stowe Road. Right now, this cost, $30 million, which is the least expensive cost that we have currently. Maybe that changes. Maybe 750 becomes the least. But right now, this needs to be more, this is 72 Stowe Road. Because who are we kidding? That's what this is.
Except the second one
I
is
mean-
non-residential zone location, the second choice.
Right,
So that rules it out on 72 Stowe Road, does it not?
right.
Yeah.
it'll rule out 72, it'll rule out the current.
So
location
maybe
as
it's
well.
1414, maybe it's 1300.
100. That's the only two left that aren't residential, right?
Right.
Because they're in the, is that the business or
Yeah, the
commercial
business or whatever,
strip?
commercial, yep.
I'm just thinking this through because this
So
is
it's no longer the least expensive.
yeah, but this is presented at the
Mhm.
town meeting where the zoning is also going to be presented.
Mhm.
Okay.
This is not, like, this is just a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, no, I get that. I'm just thinking like if they put an overlay in, like if they choose.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah, I
more
don't
with
think
the
they
overlay,
are,
then I
she
don't know if
meant
that
to,
really-
when she said non-residential, I don't think she meant, the
Zoning
zoning.
wise.
In general, a non-residential area.
Not in the middle of a neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
Is what she meant.
Regardless
didn't-
of
but-
how it's zoned.
But
Yeah,
Right.
regardless of how it's zoned.
I'm just like, but again, like if we're not talking about zoning, what does that mean? Because if we put it, if
So
you put it next to
1300.
Paddock Estates, that's residential.
Yes.
Right, but 1300 is
Yeah.
not in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
1414 is not in the middle of a neighborhood.
If it's next to Paddock Estates, yes, that would
That
be
would be considered, that would be
residential.
So
considered
it has to be
residential
clear
then.
that we're not talking about zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think this is, I think some
Maybe
of
we
this language is
get rid of the word
complicated.
residential and make neighborhood, so there's no confusion with zoning.
So can I maybe suggest that, you know, you're hearing, Mike, you're hearing the feedback.
I don't know.
So we need feedback
This
about
is
the way
not
to word the
clear.
question.
Right? So maybe we need to come back with language. I think maybe, can we all agree that sense of the meeting articles make sense to go to town meeting, but this language is complicated and confusing and we really need to clean it up?
So I don't understand that Dennis gave help wording these.
No,
No, just a suggestion of
Should
dividing
we
it into
ask
4
Dennis's
parts.
opinion?
no, we should just do this.
I don't
Mike.
think he would give you his opinion. What
Yeah,
he
he's
said
the
is that he
moderator.
would allow
I know.
more time,
Yeah.
and he suggested that it be divided into 3 votes, not
Right.
1 vote, to
Right.
make it less confusing.
Right.
I don't think he's gonna give you.
What it should
And he
be.
shouldn't
What it
give us
should be.
language. This
No.
I
language
mean,
should
he's
come
a
from
voter
us.
too.
Yeah.
He
But
could
he-
read this and go, oh,
Yeah, but I don't even know if
But-
he votes at
No,
town
I
meeting,
know.
because I think he's gonna,
He's-
He
he's gonna
does
remain.
vote sometimes.
Does he?
Yeah.
I think he would remain neutral. I don't think he's
Yeah.
gonna give you language.
So-
That's just my sense.
Can I just make a comment about a sense of the meeting? Because we keep saying it's just a sense of the meeting. We have for years done this, sense of the meeting. But the committees that I have sat on that have done a sense of the meeting, particularly on the select board, I think we did a couple on school committee. Sense of the meeting is a sense of the meeting, and you cannot then easily dismiss what comes out of that. So understand that if vote 1 is for 72 Stowe Road and people vote for that, we cannot then come back here, have the abutters say, yeah, but we didn't get to vote, we don't like that vote, and then have us walk away from it because they vote, if the people at the meeting vote no on 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
If people say yes on 3, which is 502, we cannot then easily dismiss that, and we shouldn't, because I think that has always been kind of, I don't know, Becky, you've been on these committees, it's sort of like, if that's the sense of the meeting, that's the way the committee really goes, unless you can show real reason why
you didn't follow the sense.
they did, yeah, if you're not gonna follow that sense of the meeting,
Don't
you
have
need to
it.
go back to the taxpayers and say, and the citizens and say, it's not that we didn't think you were smart enough to make this decision, but this is the reason, it's a big reason that came up afterwards. Because otherwise, you know, there's no point in doing this.
What if we ask Matt to get the input from the 11 people that you meet with about the way this is worded? Is that fair, or is that a bad idea?
Well,
Because they
you know, we-
represent
Yeah.
You know,
the voters, right?
Yeah. We can
See
ask
what they
that.
say?
just on the
Right.
language you're talking about?
No, the concept.
Well,
I mean,
The concept.
I think, yeah, I think the concept's not a bad one. I think the language
Yeah.
really needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
But I think we need to understand what this means.
So Mary wants feedback on the language, right? That's what you were saying she was looking for.
Yeah.
I
To
think
follow
that-
through with this concept.
Right. I think that I think we need to be very clear on like what we want to hear from the voters. Like
Well-
what our objective is. Like we want to hear, do they want 72 Stowe Road because it costs less? And then do we want to hear, is it like we were saying residential zoning? Do we want to say this is only impacting 1 or 2 residential abutters as opposed to 95 residential abutters? Like, are we putting in a range in? Like,
Sarah, that is, I don't think
But-
that's a slip, that's no.
I
So,
think- but we
two
have
people,
to
they
do-
don't matter, more people matter? Like, I mean.
I don't actually
Right.
think
So
that's what,
I
I don't think
think-
that's what Sarah's saying.
No, no,
I
no,
think
no,
what
but
Sarah's
that's how
saying-
it can
Is,
be
like,
construed.
we need to say how we're gonna word
Right.
it. We
Yeah.
can't just say a residential zone or a neighborhood, because I know that we're not looking at the one on Hughes, right?
Yeah, that's the
That's But
886.
is that a neighborhood? It's on
That
that
is.
side,
Hughes
right?
Lane is
And there's a
neighborhood.
neighborhood right
Yes.
there.
And you know what?
There's
The other
8
night-
houses in the neighborhood.
There are only about 8
so-
houses there, but
But
Yeah,
at
but
the
it's
planning
like-
board meeting the other night, you know what we heard from one of the neighbors to 502? I understand,
Oh,
and she
yeah.
said this to the planning board, I understand it may not seem it, but we are a neighborhood.
Neighborhood.
We just happen to be on Mass Ave, but we're a neighborhood too. So she was very
Yeah.
clear on that.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah,
So
just,
I just think that
We need to work on the
I
wording
think
on
the
that.
concept's good. I think we need to be very specific on the information that we want from the voters, and I think that we need to make sure that it's asked the right way, so it's very clear to the voters the answers that we're looking for.
right, not the right or wrong answer, but the answer we're looking for is.
Yeah, like
sorry.
no.
Right.
What worries me is, in October, 5 people from Enclave are at the town meeting, and that overwhelmingly, people say we want the cheapest vote. Then 200 of them show up when we vote on the money.
I know,
Mac,
Mac,
we-
but there's nothing we can do about that.
The thing is, we cannot predict how it's going to go. I think we need to do our due diligence. We need to, like, I think we learned from our mistakes that we need to reach out more coffee socials and like getting into people's homes. Like obviously whatever like the public outreach we
Yeah.
did is not going to be sufficient. And we need to put off, like I think we cannot ahead of time in these type of situations will ever know whether we are going to come out successful or not. But we need to make everything possible to try to get to that. But I don't think we can have a clear cut. Okay,
I know,
I'm going
but Mac's problem is, so he's not wrong in that, although, you know what, Mac, the enclave's gonna come out that night. If the 72 Stowe Road is clear, the abutters are gonna come out. The thing is that's important is, with all due respect to the abutters, this is a community issue. So they may have 75 people who come out and vote against it, but there may be 200 people that vote for it because
It's cheaper.
it's less expensive, and it's, quite frankly, the best program, the best place right now for this. So that is just the way it is. We are a community, and there's been a lot since before COVID, and starting at 1414 of, I don't want that in my backyard. I don't want that. But we're a community, and this is a community effort. So we have to put that out there, and people need to come, and they're gonna vote. And the best we can do is educate everybody. And that's gonna be what the vote is. And I agree with you, that's a concern, that
It
we'll
is.
get people to vote yes on this,
It
and
is.
then they'll come out and vote no for the money because Enclave will, or Tinsbury will
Or
rally.
they didn't realize by voting for least expensive was choosing 72 Stowe
But I
Road.
think
Yeah.
that's what we
Yeah.
need to make clear.
Same thing with
That's-
this one. If you
yeah.
vote for this one, you know you can't build on the current site.
All right, I have a
It's like a
suggestion
trick.
that we vote on the concept and that we ask Maria to do some wordsmithing and send it to all of us now. And we
Maria
can't.
to do wordsmithing?
Yeah.
Hey, Mac, can I offer something?
Yep.
Can I offer to try to summarize what I think Mary's trying to get from this? And you let me know if I missed
Okay.
what the concept was. There are 3 major answers coming back at you as a committee. One is, we want it to stay at the current location. Another different answer is, we want the cheapest. And a third answer is, we don't want it near a lot of residential, single-family homes or residential community. I think those are 3 major themes you're hearing, and I think she's trying to get a sense of where the balance is on those 3.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah.
That is, but,
Yeah.
so the question is, what is the wording that would
Right.
Yeah.
accomplish that? Maybe we should put it back to Mary, she's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable wordsmithing Mary's,
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't,
But
you
I
know.
think what I'm hearing, I think gives her some help. One, take out the part about most viable, and then the other one is, change from the word residential and maybe use neighborhood or something else that connotates
Then it'll be
around a bunch of
pretty much.
people and not necessarily the zoning. At least that's a start. And then she can go back and listen to this conversation and bring it back to the intention she
Yeah.
had.
okay.
Yeah,
And
and
and also, make it more clear that number one is about 72 Stowe Road.
Yeah, I think that's important. I agree with Mac. We need to be clear about that. It needs to be transparent. Because right now, the cheapest, less expensive building is Stowe Road. We don't have any other option for a less expensive building. And there's a handful of people on our meeting tonight. We need to be transparent with the community
Yeah.
that
Right.
this is what we're looking at.
Okay,
And one of these choices is regardless of cost. It's not near a neighborhood and it's not in a residential district, regardless of cost. Because to put it
Right,
there
that's the
costs
second
more
choice,
money.
right? Right.
So as long as you're willing to spend what it costs, we can give you non-residential best location.
Yeah.
So that's, Mac, I mean,
That
Mike,
would be a
that's
14
the second one,
Maybe.
where we have the cost
Or
plus
like
$4 million.
1,300. Yeah.
That needs to be reworded, I think, to say what Alan just said.
Regardless of cost.
Regardless of cost, do you want it in a non-residential location? So that $4 million is $10 million,
Regardless of, yeah, it should be.
regardless of cost.
I don't like that. I think it's got to have some kind of a, people are going to say, well, what does that mean? Is it $15 million more? I wouldn't vote for that, but if it's $2 million, I
We
would vote
won't
for it.
know
But
the
we won't-
cost.
the problem is we might not know
We might
that.
not know the
No,
cost,
all we gotta
right?
know the
Right.
typical cost of what we've already designed, plus the cost of the land.
Right, but
There are
if
so
if
many
we put a
unknowns.
number in there, it's going to be in the ballpark. $4 million is going to be in the ballpark, I've got to
But
believe.
because we just heard, we need to give facts that we cannot change. So here it is again. I'm sorry, I'm a little frustrated. I'm just worried. We're gonna give something, even in the sense, which is an approximate number. We're saying, yes, it's an approximate, but people are gonna hold it. They are only gonna hear the number. They're not gonna see the approximate before, or like close to before, whatever word we might put. I'm just worried.
Nobody's going to vote for regardless of cost.
I hear that too, Matt, but like, I'm just trying to figure out where's the
So you have
right
to,
way.
when you deal with these numbers, the 4 million or the 6 million, you say, we think it's something like 4 million. And we
Okay.
think it's something like 6 million.
So
And we
Mike,
think the building is something like 30 million.
Could we say minimum?
Can we do something, I mean, we're gonna have an approximate, so let's say we're talking about 1313 in the second article, right? We're gonna know approximately what it's gonna cost for the building. At what point are we, and then we're gonna get from context, hopefully, well, it's 4 weeks, we don't have time to get
No,
from context.
no.
That's
They're
what,
not gonna-
we
We're
are
not
not
gonna
gonna
have
have the
numbers.
numbers. We might come up with like what
So
it
there's
might cost
needs-
to purchase
right.
the
So
property.
that
but we will not-
approximate cost
yeah.
needs to be,
Maybe you don't use the number, least expensive no matter what.
right, but on this Article 2, to say, in a non-residential location based on cost, approximately $4 million, that's too low of a number.
Yeah.
So what's the high end of that number? We don't know.
Yeah, I would say like minimum 4 million.
Minimum of 4 million, maybe you do a range, like Mike, maybe we figure out some type of range on that.
Yeah,
Because
range,
if we
they
just have
stick
to
to the
buy
map.
it, and then we can build in a parking lot, great, but if we have to buy it, abandon wells, knock a building down and have, then all of a sudden, maybe we're at 10 million, who
Can you
knows?
say that's
But-
a percentage? Because now we're not even sure what the cost of the building is, if we can actually reduce it to, 18,000 square feet or 16,000 square feet?
See, that's what we said with the square footage, right? Like we said, like up to like to 20,400, we said it could. Then people want like the lower number. So even if you say a range, they're gonna stick with the lower number.
Well, that only makes sense.
Somehow this needs to,
Right.
Article 2 needs to be reworded, or Article number 2 of 1, whatever it is. needs-
Mike,
that needs to
we
be
can talk with
reworded.
Mary about this.
Yeah.
I think we've got the ideas. So can we?
But
Maybe it's enough to say back to Mary, we talked about it at the committee so long, it can't be right. And we need help, Mary.
Yeah.
Because if we're confused by it, imagine people that
Right.
aren't intimately involved with it, what's
Right.
going to happen to their mind.
I think we're not confused. I think we are struggling to figure out like how to make sure that we are factual. At the same time, we don't we have to get
Overpromise,
this,
underdeliver, all those things.
overpromise, and like we get the sense of the meeting, and have not give people range, not give people approximate,
Yeah.
like minimum, maximum. This is.
I think I know, what Mac is saying though about the numbers, because if you look at the second one, building a new firehouse in a non-residential zone location. Well, if to do that cost the town another $1 million, I'm for it. If it costs $10 million, I'm not for it.
I understand, but we
Yeah.
won't have those
Yeah.
I
numbers.
know.
So how do
But-
we explain that?
But that's why they're important. 'cause-
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right.
And you can't just say to not build at a cost of X, we don't know what X is, but we're like assuming it's somewhere between $4 and $10 million. I mean, that just doesn't, we can't, that is not factual.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm sick of being hammered on about that. So like, we need to put facts out there, right? We need to have some number. I don't know how you word that better.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying, does it make sense to have some input from the 11 people of the special committee? Won't they
I'll ask.
struggle with this too? Because they're the ones that are gonna have to talk it up in their neighborhood to
Actually-
their friends that are voters about how they should vote.
Didn't that come up at our meeting last night? Or,
This?
or, I mean, about the, different levels that maybe, would they be willing to pay more?
We
And
did.
certain-
We did. We talked about that, and it is really late right now, and my head is not remembering what it was.
We did talk
We
about
did.
that.
We
But
talked about it.
anyway, I still think, can we just vote on the concept and then
Yes.
Yeah, yes,
Mike and I will get back to
absolutely.
Mary.
What's the motion exactly?
To get a sense.
That we agree with this concept and that there needs to be some wording
So the
changes.
motion is to include Article 1, 2, 3, and 4 as presented with edits that we will do in the warrant for the upcoming October 14th special town meeting.
Does that sound right?
Have you,
Mike?
yeah.
Is that Article 1? Is that okay to say
Yeah,
Article 1?
well, Article 1 from us, you guys are gonna renumber these. These are our articles.
Yeah,
and
we
they're
need
gonna
to
be
clarify that.
okay, so, I make a motion to include the 4 sense of the meeting articles as presented at our meeting on August 14th with the changes. And are we gonna, and we'll do a final vote after the changes have been made.
So right now, we're voting that we agree with the idea,
To-
but not what these say.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Maria made the motion.
Motion
Is there a
second.
Yeah,
Right. All right, we ready to vote?
yes.
Yep.
We left to get Larry.
I just want to get Priya seconded. So we're going to take a vote. Larry?
Nay.
Nay, okay.
Okay. Sarah?
Aye.
Aye.
Sundaram, aye.
But I would have liked to know why Larry went with nay.
Yeah, Larry, yeah, maybe we
But
should have
aye.
done
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll say aye too, but Larry, what is your concern?
I just don't think the outcome is going to be something that is going to be helpful.
Let's see.
I think it's going to be divisive, and I think it's going to be, people are not going to know what they're voting for. Look how much time we spent, we couldn't make heads or tails out of it.
I don't disagree with you, Larry. I have a concern too. But we can pull this before September 12th. So we can include it, talk about it at the next meeting and the meeting after that. But if we're not happy with it, with the final, we can just say this doesn't make any sense.
Maybe Mary will listen to this part of the meeting.
Yeah.
To hear everything that we've said.
Yeah.
And then might rethink the idea of doing it.
I like the idea though, Larry, we talked about those first 3, but the 4th one was about a green building, and I actually do think, did I say 3 or 4 in my motion?
You said 4.
I said 4. I do think that green component is good to get a sense of the meeting on, because that is going to be significantly more expensive, and I think it's good to get the community input on that.
What's the payback period to get the $2 million back?
It depends on what we're talking about.
Sometimes we might get grants back pretty quickly, right? Like the school got a nice big grant money.
That's what I wrote down,
But
too.
it really
Just
does
don't get
depend.
hung up, don't get hung up on 2 million, because
Yeah.
it might be 1 million, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or it could
Yeah.
be 3 million.
It's just a
Right.
placeholder.
Yeah.
When you're spending
Yes.
municipal funds like this, is it not a requirement to do it?
So some of the things, and this is something that I need to check with Jeff and Steve on, some of these things are gonna be baked into code.
Yeah, right.
They're gonna have to do it. And then there's some things, like your geothermal wells, that are
Yeah.
not a requirement, that are gonna be a significant expense. And I think at one point Jeff said, maybe 700,000 plus to do that.
And that's not the kind of thing you can add later. You
Right.
gotta do it when you're building the building. Panels you can put on any
Right.
time,
Yeah.
but not the
Yeah,
wells.
so the cost of this, maybe it's 700,000, or
Yeah,
maybe
right.
it's certainly some amount more,
So-
but
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is.
So Larry, we can, the next time we come back with the language, we can vote differently if we choose to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
As an example, what we just said, if the town were to vote for the least expensive option, that would remove the green out of it. Because we can make the building cheaper by not doing it.
Right. Okay, I would like to hear a motion on the minutes, and we can then have a discussion if it's voted and seconded.
If I found anything. I was good with it.
Okay.
Motion to accept the minutes of July 24th.
Okay, Maria, and.
Second.
Yes, second, Priya?
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion about the minutes? All those in favor, I'll take a vote. Larry?
Yes.
Sarah?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
So then
Priya?
I.
Aye.
Maria? Mac?
That's good.
All right.
You skipped public outreach. Do we have
No.
an update?
That was out of order, I think.
Okay.
So I was gonna
Okay,
do that last.
sorry.
So, is there anybody in the public who would like to speak who has not spoken?
No. Public outreach being us, doing public
Oh,
outreach
yes, I'm sorry.
to the public.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, do we have, well, apparently tonight we've decided we're gonna put together a video of other stations and what they look like.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think.
Chat GPT. Help us.
I would like to know, I think we'd like to know if there was input, and maybe Sarah can give us this, about what people heard, didn't hear, what information was out there in your Monday night group, like what we can do better. So maybe Sarah, do you have that information that you can give us at our meeting so we don't have to go through it all tonight?
Yeah, I have some.
So that we
some
know
that-
to do better job on how to do, well,
Yep.
I think we're doing a good job, but how we can
Yeah.
maybe try to
Make it better.
make
I-
it better.
I did have one question. We were talking about the planning board meeting, the 18th at 7 p.m. That's currently what the sign says out
Mhm.
front, in front of the fire station. Should I change it to 8 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
Yes.
we're not gonna be before that.
I will
Yeah.
do that on my way home tonight.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll lurk around that sign.
The website has been really changed. It's been cleaned up. All the information is there. The historical information is there. We've taken all the reports. There is a link to every single one of the engineering reports that we've looked at that has been embedded in packages, and we've had complaints from people that they can't find stuff. All of the individual reports are now on a link. So you click on it, it goes to, is it context or?
Yes.
Okay, it's a context.
Is that what Emily put together?
Yes.
Yes.
And then there's folders, and all of those are in there. I think that the website, and I think you guys would agree, is in really good, we have all our presentations from every
Right
present.
up on top.
Yep, all our presentations that we've done, PowerPoints at the forums, in these meetings. We have all the historical documents going back 13 years. We do have the contracts for the engineers, the OPM and all of that, that's in a separate folder. We have our frequently asked questions that I don't know that anybody's reading, but it's out there. We have our frequently asked question video, still top and front and center. We have a button on the front page. If anyone has any other suggestions, please, we're happy to listen, but I think that this webpage is pretty good, and we'll make changes as we continue to get information in. But I think it's much cleaner than it was. And I think the information's easier to find. Honestly, I'm almost to the point where if the information's there, so I don't know what to tell people. They say they can't find the information. I don't know what to tell you. It is all
You
there.
can't push them information if they don't give you their email address to be pushed to.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people complain about, is we don't know what's going on. And I say to them, well, why don't you go on the website? I don't want to go on the website, send it to me.
I know.
How can I send it to you?
So we have been
subscribe to
able,
it.
we've been able to use the subscription through the website to inform people about the planning board meetings, and that's worked out pretty well. So I think that is gonna be something, if people wanna be part of that, go to the website and subscribe to the Fire Station Building Committee page.
Yeah.
There's a little link, so you can subscribe and be sent information. I think that's worked out really well,
Yeah.
and we'll use that in the future going forward, but we can only give you information if you provide us with an email. And we've collected those throughout, and we'll continue to collect them. So,
As of a week ago, that was being pushed out to about 120 people.
great. That's awesome. It's not enough, but it's not because of anything that, the town is doing. It's that we don't have more addresses. So, is that everything? Yeah.
It's a good thing that Mary was not at our meeting last night, because there was a comment made that we should have had sessions where we listened instead of talked to people, right? So
Seriously?
that, I don't know how many people that are represented by that comment, but was a comment anyway. So, Mike, is there anything
There you go. So,
you would like to update?
I don't have any other updates, other than we will, if it's your desire, to get an executive session at the beginning of the next meeting.
Yes.
I will not be at the next meeting, and I will not be Zooming in. So,
Okay.
but I've already told Mary that, so she knows that.
Any updates?
Anything you'd like to add, Chief?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. And if the public, anybody like to speak?
Okay, so, all right, so are we going to go back and forth? So Becky first, and then we
Yes,
have someone
yes,
online. Do
yes.
you want to go first?
Becky, let Becky go first.
Okay. And then Diana's online.
Okay.
I have two things. First, I have a huge problem with the fact that the chief wasn't involved in your small groups. You had people recommending changes to the station and no one defending the program. You were all appointed by the select board because you bring different expertise and represent different perspectives. For some reason, you've decided to abdicate your responsibility to a small listening group, giving some members of the listening group more voice than others, the malcontents, who no matter what you do will find something wrong with your recommendations. Now you're looking at 4 cents of the meeting votes for special town meeting. I don't understand why. You've all sat through countless meetings and should come to town meeting prepared to speak to the needs of the town. You should be doing the job you were appointed to do and not give up your responsibility of what this fire station needs to be.
I would like to respond to a piece of that about the listening group. They are not making any decisions. What we've found is we had all those, I think I said, I went to 11 out of 12 of the listening sessions, and we didn't hear a lot of comments from that. We made presentations and there weren't a lot of suggestions about things. So that's what this is. This group is not making any decisions. They're giving us some input, and it's being given to the committee, and it's given to context, and the chief it will be. So we're not abdicating our responsibility, in my mind.
Okay, who's keeping track?
I don't know who's keeping track of time, but we're going to go to the online, so we're going to go to Diana, who seems to be unmuted. I don't really understand it because I don't think I unmuted her, but she's unmuted. Diana?
Diana?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me just say, I think this group would profit from commentary during the meeting because it's extremely difficult for people who are listening to comment on all the different issues that you talked about, and we've lost people during this meeting. So I'm going to take it from the start, and I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible. First, regarding the planning board and timing of hearings. A hearing, public hearing, is set for a certain time, but there is no regulation regarding when it takes place. It just simply cannot take place before the allotted time. Secondly, you're talking about the question about preventing facts. The reason people have made this comment is because you have ignored facts, quite honestly. I brought up, and this is not meant to be a be-all or the end-all, but I brought about comments about the swing space. I have yet to hear a factual rebuttal to some of the comments that I made, other than a general catch-all like, well, this is a comment that we have from some unknown source that we cannot name, and therefore we still stick with our estimate of $6 million. That is simply not acceptable in terms of facts, not for me and not for anyone else. I am perfectly willing to listen to your explanations about any site that you discuss, as long as you present viable facts, which you yourselves have checked. And I just want to remind this committee, the experts that you rely upon did not present to you the problem regarding the zoning at 72 Stowe Road. If I were on this committee, everything that I would hear from that moment forward, if it didn't occur to me before, would certainly be subject to my own personal verification. And I do believe that you owe that to the public. Personally, do a little bit of research on your own and perhaps come up with some additional questions at the very least for the experts that we have hired. Regarding the context-based needs situation, I was on the committee when that came up. I heard the whole explanation that Jeff from Context made tonight. It's a little bit like saying, well, you know, I really, really want a ballroom, and I want it for 100 people. So tell me what size I need to make for 100 people. Not whether I actually need 100 people or a ballroom for 100 people. And that is the very issue here. I, at the time, asked Context to supply, and so did others on the committee, in comparison with other towns, about what the needs were for Boxborough. And those needs are not just what are wanted by any fire chief, but what we need as a town. How many fires do we have? How many emergency calls do we have? How many people do we have sitting there? Listen, stop dinging the bell. There are only a few of us on this call, so please, let me talk. I've sat through this whole meeting and I've listened to you endlessly.
We'll give you one more minute, Diana.
Thank you. Well, this is really great. Okay. 873 Mass Ave, which is the DPW, connected to 296 Middle Road. Did you ever think about the idea of maybe putting the fire station where the DPW is and maybe moving the DPW into the fire station? Just a thought. Now, regarding those various things that you talked about the sense of the meeting, completely useless. I agree with Larry, and I agree with Maria, which is a very unusual circumstance. They're confusing, they mean nothing. Everyone will interpret 72 Stowe Road as what you're talking about. Be direct and ask for that if that's what you want to know, because I know that is your preferred site. But the idea of putting out a sense of the meeting is completely useless, especially since you're going to have a warrant article regarding residential districts and zoning changes and so forth. You're going to get a sense of the meeting right off the bat as to whether people feel fire stations and police stations should be in residential zones. If you guys really want to build a fire station, you need to start accepting public comment and not limiting people to the beginning and the end. Ding, ding, ding. Good night.
Okay, thank you. We heard you. And Diana, you're always welcome to send a note to our website and we will see all of that. If you have other things that you want to share with us, we'd be happy to look at them. We just can't at 10 o'clock at night continue with a lot of discussion.
So we have, Tina, do you have a public? Okay.
Yeah, it's a long day, huh? Okay. So I do appreciate everything that everyone's going through, and I've watched every video. I'm trying to go through all the documents. Very intense job entitled with that. I mean, working with that. But what I wanted to get at was, I think you guys are talking the right talk in many ways about the things you need to go over. It's just not coming out to us. And I'm going to just say the simplest way. One time I stood here about a microphone when we first had this meeting, and I said, I hear the number, and I don't have a clear, oh, I'm getting tired, delineation between what are the must-haves and what's the nice-to-haves and what everything. Because by this point, we should have a rough ballpark about what the building's going to cost versus what, potentially our land cost will be in a range. And I think with all this other noise, we just need to show people that kind of number and just say, hey, this is what he needs, right? And then, like I said, the reason I brought that up the first time is I had heard that there was charging stations and 70 parking spots somewhere at one of the meetings. I'm like, wow, that seems like overdone. I would like to see what the actual real needs are first, and then we can talk about things on top of that. I still haven't gotten that out of everything I'm reading quite yet, what the musts and wants are, but I'm trying to get there. That's one. Two is that the Stowe Row issue is, and I'm one of the people who is slightly against this, and I'll tell you why, and maybe you can tweak it in such a way that it won't be such a negative, is that this is the main, for the kids who go to Stowe in the summers, it is the main path to their bike. It's like the rites of passage to be able to get on those bikes and ride to camp. And now we're putting a fire station on what potentially could be a very busy road in the summertime for kids. And this is a big deal to them if you've never seen it happen, but it is a big deal to the kids to be able to get to Stowe and Flara for camp. And that's kind of like their growing rights to be able to ride their bikes. Maybe some ways to find a safer path once the fire station is in, to get them from their sidewalks. Some of them are coming from Joyce and across Middle Road and coming up and trying to make it to camp. And it's going to get more and more busy. And I think that's some of the concern that I have. People walk that street a lot. There is a little bit of a hill, things like that. Maybe that's some things to focus on. See if there's some way to maybe people feel safer about maybe circumventing maybe going behind, making a path that goes behind the fire station that lets them feel better about the fact that their kids are not going to be in the path of a fire truck trying to go out. I think that may be some of it. I don't know. For me, that would put me in a more positive light for 72 Stowe Road. All right? For those kids and to keep that kind of lifestyle that those kids we've had known as our neighborhood as that. But basically, in short, yeah, I'm willing to help with whatever you have. Some of the discussion that happens up here for some of these lots, just make a spreadsheet with your pros and cons, make a consistent evaluation, put that somewhere before the meeting so we can read, or even put it in the meeting book so we can see all the decisions made and why you accepted those lots and not. And then which ones are still viable, but which one is your best and most, give us that really in simple terms and not make us have to dig through a lot of the data. I know you guys, it's a lot of data, and I know it's important for us all to read, but it is part of a problem, and you want this to pass, and I want them to have a better fire station. So whatever we can do to help, contact us. We'll help pull together the information, whatever we can do. I just want to help get this through, and that's how I feel about it. We got to make it clean, cut, and decisive and succinct. That's what people need at this point, because otherwise they're just going to keep discussing, and it's never going to go down. So that's all I have to say. But thank you for your effort and your work, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I just say for the record, so for whoever's taking notes, that was Tina Stevens. Yeah, because it's okay. Yeah, we have John Markowitz. So I'm unmuting him now.
Okay, John.
There we go.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say about the group that's gotten together. We've taken our own time to dig into this whole fire station. And what we've done is, and what we said and what we say at all our meetings, the reason we're there is we're trying to help this committee put together something that can pass, something that the town will accept, something that's in a range of prices that may be more reasonable, because that's what we're hearing from people. Maybe a size that's more reasonable. Quite frankly, I don't care where it goes. I'm more concerned about what's the total cost to the community and what the financial impact of the community is going to be, and making sure that what we have is what we really need. So for someone to say that, why are we doing this, and then to call us malcontents, is just being totally disrespectful for those of us that are taking our own time to try to help get this thing done and through the door so we can start construction as soon as possible. And also with regards to the comment about listening, I looked at the reaction of the board tonight when that was mentioned, and the snickers, and that was quite disappointing, because quite frankly, just after town meeting, Mary had a meeting of this committee and called it a listening session. He walked into the Grange room, and the first words out of her mouth were "wow." And wow, because she said, I've not seen this many people turn out for a meeting. And I went up to Mary afterwards and I said, Mary, the reason you had that many people there is because it was titled a listening meeting, where you decided to listen to what the public had to say. And that's what was missing from your other meetings. They were information meetings, which was great. But during those meetings, I asked a number of questions and was told we would have to get back to you. At which point no one ever did. That's disappointing. You have to understand that people will have differences of opinion and different viewpoints, and it's important to listen to that, because that's what you're going to get at town meeting. The committees, these little groups that have been put together by Mac and Mary, we're trying to help you. we're trying to get, we want to be rooting for getting this thing done, okay? To not take into account what we do is disappointing. To allow someone to call us malcontents in a public meeting is disappointing. It's just sad, okay? You have people that want to help you, but because our views may be different, they're wrong. And that's how I feel you're thinking about this. And I'm very, very disappointed. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Can I just ask, Les, he's not hearing me, okay. Because he said he couldn't raise his hand earlier, so I didn't know if he wanted to speak.
Les, would you like to speak? Les Fox?
No, I don't think he can hear us. Les, did you want to speak? I know you can't raise your hand,
You can't hear anything if you're talking.
Thanks. Les, can you
We
hear us?
cannot hear you.
Oh, nobody can hear us. And I don't know why all these people are getting unmuted, because I'm not unmuting them. I don't know how they're getting unmuted.
We can't hear you.
This is what I'm saying. She keeps, okay, we know. But you can't hear me say
Can't
we
hear
know.
anybody.
Oh my God.
What happened?
Can you knock on the door?
Doesn't
But
she know? we
more
can't-
importantly,
Is it working now? Can people on Zoom
Test.
No, can people on Zoom hear you now?
Diana, can
The
you hear
audio,
us?
the audio is working now.
Okay, thank you. Les Fox, can you hear me now, Les? Did you want to speak? If you wanted to speak, can you raise your hand? Because you,
My raise hand button doesn't work as I texted you earlier.
right, so that's what I'm asking. Did you want to speak? Because you texted me that your raised hand button doesn't work.
Can I explain what's going on with the raised
It's
hand?
kind of old
thing
news
first?
now. I was just commenting on the 1300 Mass Avenue site, which has the 2 wells in it. Those wells have had problems for years that DEP is well aware of, and I would not get too hung up on about them. I would just be prepared to abandon them and drill a new well where it can be appropriately sited. I don't see that as a huge obstacle to making good use of that site if that's what the committee wants to do.
Okay, and Mike has a comment about raising your hand.
Yeah, for anyone who's still on here, Zoom has changed their platform a little bit. If you look at the bottom of your screen, just left of the center, there's a little heart that says react. If you click on that, it will give you the option to raise hand and do other reactions. But it's a Zoom function that has changed in the last week.
I thought it was my software. Is that a
I tried that earlier, but
Yeah, it's not a choice.
May I,
do it, Mike?
I don't know if you can hear me. If you can hear me, it's because you need to upgrade your Zoom. I had the same experience, Les, so you need to go.
as far as I know, this damn thing upgrades itself every day, so
Oh,
I don't know what to say.
Check it out, because I upgraded it.
Oh, I see the menu now. I wasn't there earlier when I looked, so
They're all
thanks.
just unmuting themselves. I have no control.
Okay.
Over the mute button.
Nothing
All right.
will function.
If there's nothing else to come before us, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Alan?
Oh, we have.
Okay, all those in favor, Larry?
Do you have something?
Larry, we have to start.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Larry,
He's muted.
is a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, he's muted. Hold on, we have to unmute him.
Hold on.
We have a majority.
We'll come back to Larry.
No,
So-
now,
oh.
now I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.